Chapter 798. Diana lowered her head and thought about it. She was actually quite interested in seeing what it was like when she was young from today's perspective. She asked hesitantly and curiously, "Won't we mess up the timeline if we watch it casually?" Thea did not care at all. Although she was the self-proclaimed time manager, she felt that it was not a problem to do something within her scope of authority. "Is that so? Then can we go back and take a look?" "Sure, we might even find a time loophole." Thea said something that even she did not believe. They each created a clone and led Diana to the vanishing point and went back into the timeline. The scenery of Paradise Island was the same as before, or rather, it was the same as before. Thea chose the time 7 years after Diana was born. She did not dare to go any further as she was afraid that she would meet Zeus. The two goddesses were hiding in the forest, looking at the young Hippolyte and Antiope were talking. Not far away there was a small figure hiding, eavesdropping as well. She seemed to have seen her mother's expectations of her behind her back, and she was a little conflicted. Quietly leaving the forest, little Diana returned to her place, put away all her toys, and reluctantly began to practice. "Look, you were not much better than Casey when you were young." Thea covered her mouth and laughed. Diana's expression was strange. Looking back at time, she was not very hard-working when she was young. They were like invisible people, walking on the crowded Paradise Island. At this time, the Amazons had just started living here, and the tribe still maintained their primitive customs. The artistic buildings of the future did not appear, and Thea did not seem like much. However, Diana was in high spirits. The sea breeze blew their hair from time to time. Looking at the mountains in the distance, holding her lover's hand, walking on the land where she was born and raised, she was so happy that she could fly. Looking at the many younger versions of her tribe members running around, building their homes, she felt a joy from the bottom of her heart. "Are you happy?" Thea asked as if she was showing off a treasure. "Happy," Diana replied sweetly. "Then come to my place tonight?" "But I promised Casey that I would rush back." "Casey is so old he won't die. Just make a call and say that the Jinglian has a mission." Thea dispelled Diana's concerns with just a few words. According to her, if Diana, the teacher who brought her own food, were to disappear for a few days, the magical girl would realize the value of a teacher and would most likely study harder in the future. Knowing that she was talking nonsense, Diana still accepted her explanation. Diana was the one talking while Thea was the one listening. However, both of them were very restrained and did not use their magic power to do anything for Paradise Island. This was already the past. It was fine to watch, but it was taboo to get involved. Diana was walking forward when Thea suddenly grabbed her arm. The Valkyrie was very vigilant. Her bright eyes scanned the crowd and saw a woman as bright as the moonlight. "He can see me." This was the first reaction of the three women who met by chance. "Oh, Your Highness Artemis. I didn't expect to see you here." Thea was the strongest. She instantly saw through the other party's true identity. Although her current level was higher than the other party, Thea still bowed slightly to the other party as a form of greeting. "Ah? Oh, hello." Diana was a little embarrassed. The moon goddess Artemis was her elder sister, but the relationship between the siblings of the Greek gods was really worrying. She just remembered that she had been blessed by Artemis when she was born. So she saluted. Moon God was shocked. She did not expect to run into two god spirits she had never seen before while she was out for a walk. Although they were all clones, she could tell many things from their characteristics. Diana gave her the feeling that she was like Apollo. She had a dignified aura and could not be looked at directly. Thea, on the other hand, could not see through her. She was a little like Hades, but she could not tell the difference. Realizing that she was a little rude, she hurriedly bowed to the two goddesses. The three goddesses did not speak. Thea and Diana were a little speechless. They did not expect to meet acquaintances on a trip. For a moment, they did not know what to say. The moon goddess was the first to speak. "Your highnesses are not from the Greek gods, right? Are you the gods of the Mesopotamia?" They had seen the Egyptian gods before. Gods like Thea were one of the best even among the 9 pillar gods. There was no reason for them not to know her. Diana looked at Thea with a strange expression. The look in her eyes said, "How are we going to explain this?" "We came from the future to thank you, Your Highness," Thea said without blushing. This news shocked the moon goddess. Time was a forbidden area for the gods. Not to mention her, even Zeus did not dare to casually touch the timeline. Without a reference point, blindly entering the timeline would have an 80% chance of losing oneself. "Do I still have a future?" Of course. Olympus prophesied that the eldest son of Zeus will kill one of his children and then ascend to the throne. Is that true? It's a lie. It's pure nonsense. Ah! The moon goddess was completely unsettled. "I can't sleep thinking about it. Now you're telling me that it's a lie?" "But Zeus's oracle," he said. The moon goddess hesitated. She did not know if she should talk about the secrets of her gods with these two unfamiliar gods. Thea sneered. Zeus was too cunning. He played his children in circles, tricking them into giving up their human faith and hiding in the gods' kingdom to wait for death. Meanwhile, he was crazily grabbing every opportunity to reach the highest level. Did humans give up on the gods, or did the gods give up on humans? She did not dare to talk about this question lightly. This was a matter of the past to her. Humans had entered the age of technology. The age of the old gods and the gods of faith would come to an end sooner or later. "Your Highness, the path of faith is ultimately limited. However, as long as the bright moon in the sky is still there, nothing will happen to you." Artemis's personality was very light, even a little aloof from worldly affairs. After being tricked by Thea, she completely extinguished the idea of participating in the battle of the gods. What happened next was logical. Thea had always felt that the moon goddess was unreasonably good to her back then. Now that the truth was out, she realized that it was all because of her own knowledge that she had given up on. There was no discerning eye, no familiarity at first sight. The inside story was actually a deal. It was a fair deal. She did not let the moon goddess suffer a loss. To prevent her from jumping into the pit, she also gave her some pointers from the perspective of a new god. It had to be said that the Greek gods spent a lot of effort on eating, drinking, and having fun. However, when it came to becoming stronger, they were all as slow as fools. Giving up the human faith and walking the path of the gods of nature, like Zeus, was the only choice for Artemis. "You came from the future, so your knowledge must be 100 times better than mine. What is the world we live in? What is the position of our gods?" The moon goddess asked at the end of the conversation. Hearing this question, Diana's eyes flashed. In fact, she did not know either. However, her intuition told her that Thea most likely knew. It was just that she did not say it. Sending a signal to your lover that you must say it today. Diana puts her hands in her pockets and is ready to listen carefully. Thea scratched her head a little. After thinking about it, she decided to say a small part. The universe is very big. There are unknown parallel universes. The world under our feet is one of them. She did not show off the concept of 52 universes. The new gods were unique, but the old gods were different. There was no need to deliberately show off this point. In the universe, there is an immeasurable power that divides the universe into 8 regions, called the realm of gods. They correspond to each other. They are dream, heaven, new creation, and heaven. Nightmare, hell, apocalypse, and underworld. We come from new creation. Our enemy, Darkside, is in apocalypse. Many holy lands, including Mount Olympus, are in heaven. The underworld of Hades and Osiris is in underworld. Of course, the angels are in heaven, and the demons are in hell. As for dream and nightmare, they are too mysterious. I don't know. She briefly explained the realm of gods, and the moon goddess breathed a sigh of relief. She had always thought that she was not doing well. Now that she analyzed it, it seemed to be okay. Some of the urgency in her expression disappeared, and her temperament slowly calmed down. "Thank you for your kind words. I look forward to our next meeting." Before Moon God left, she said something that had a double meaning. After sending the moon goddess off, Thea continued to walk around with Diana for the whole day. When they returned to the original space-time, they were going to the party on the weekend. Chapter 799. It was the weekend in Gotham City. It was heaven in the day and hell at night. The storm caused by Batman's disappearance had gradually calmed down. Dick Grayson was working very hard. Everyone could see that, but he was not Bruce after all. Thea took advantage of this opportunity to make a move on both sides. A large number of criminals were loaded into spaceships and taken away. For example, Batman's old rival, Penguin Man, was now mining coal on a planet 5 light-years away from Earth. Many of the underworld families were swept up several times, and all the core elites were captured. The remaining small fries were also beaten up badly by the Raptor Squad led by Barbara, the new Batman, Dick, and Damian the Robin. Could be said that security in Gotham was at its best right now. A new wave of criminals would definitely stand up, redivide the territory, and confirm a new boss. But that was a matter for the future. Welcome, Thea, Diana. As Bruce's cousin, Batwoman Kate Kane was also from a wealthy family. Her villa was located in the wealthy district. Unlike Wayne's old mansion, which only had one old butler, she had many helpers. The waiter at the door helped to open the car door. Thea was wearing a checkered chiffon blouse, a camel-colored skirt, and stilettos. Diana was wearing a white dress and black pointy heels. The two of them walked out of the car hand in hand with smiles on their faces. Batwoman, who was standing at the door to greet them, was not wearing the red and black battle suit. She was also wearing a very casual dress, like a gorgeous young woman. She looked much younger than Bruce, who had suffered so much. Thea and Diana hugged her gently and said jokingly, "Gotham's security has improved a lot. I was worried about a fight before I came. Haha, I'll leave Gotham to the young people from now on. I can retire." Batwoman laughed softly. They exchanged a few more pleasantries and walked into the venue together. The secretary and Poison Ivy had been there for a while. They greeted each other from afar and talked to each other. After a while, the Danvers sisters, Yavala, and Cassina entered the venue. Alex's lover, Maggie Sawyer, had a gentle smile that hid unquestionable faith. She was a very charming woman. As for Kane's lover, Renee Montoya, the future second-generation questioner, she didn't seem to speak much, but she had an unyielding bearing. These two were ordinary people. They were both police officers and had long announced that they had come out of the closet. They had a lot in common. She was wearing a tank top, revealing her smooth shoulders and arms. She was wearing a blue skirt and crystal high heels. She looked both ladylike and fashionable, much better than her usual rustic outfit. Needless to say, it was all thanks to Lena. Thea is amused to see her looking around and holding the expensive handbag as if it were a brick. "What are you afraid of? Will a Superman jump out of the bushes?" She turned around and patted Supergirl from behind. "Hi, Kara." The little girl hurriedly turned her head. From her expression, it was obvious that she had been startled. When she realized that it was Thea, she immediately relaxed. "How is it? Are you happy staying with Lena?" "Quite happy, but Lena is always controlling me." Kara pouted and complained. Thea smiled and patted her on the shoulder. This girl needed someone to control her. Otherwise, her days would definitely be muddled. Today's gathering was mainly for Carla, Alex, and Lena, the three novices, to strengthen their confidence. As for the rest, they had nothing to say. As the host, Kane had a brief talk with them and then left the meeting to them. As a veteran of the superheroes, Thea had always treated Kara as her sister. She was prepared to say a few words. "Today, we are gathered here to give our blessings to a few loving couples. Love knows no boundaries or gender. It is full of kindness. When two hearts are together, it will bring us endless strength. Love is not a burden, it is a gift." After the young lady finished speaking, she snapped her fingers. Ripples appeared in the magnificent villa. Before they could understand what was going on, they were already in a magnificent city with technology far beyond their imagination. The tall buildings with a metallic texture, the constantly patrolling spaceships, and the statues in the city square all revealed that this was an extraterrestrial civilization. They were not fools. 90% of Thea's gathering this time was prepared for Kara. She was the only alien present. It was not difficult for the girls to guess that this was Krypton, especially when they saw Kara's stunned expression. Thea revealed the answer. This is Krypton. It is simulated using holographic technology. Take Lena and have a look. In order to build this virtual space, she found several people who had been to Krypton through the IBAN Business Alliance and inputted their memories to build a virtual simulation environment. Finally, she found Comrade Violent Wolf who had been to Krypton 7 times to test it. The similarity was as high as 99%. Fiora had also seen it in person and felt that there was no problem. Kara must have been only 10 years old at that time and could not see the subtle differences. At this time, Kara pulled Lena and ran in front while the rest slowly followed behind. They could vaguely hear Kara's introduction. This was someone's home, and there was a delicious shop there. Lena also wanted to know more about her lover's past. They talked and laughed as they walked. "Can't you take it back to the time before Krypton?" Diana asked in a low voice. Thea whispered back, "It's difficult. It involves a very complicated past. We should not touch it easily." After she self-proclaimed as the time manager, she realized how many secrets there were in time. The current board of governors could only do some mending work. They could intervene in the affairs of ordinary people, but once it was beyond Thea's level, they would be in the dark. There was no doubt that some big shots did not want to be seen. This was the situation on Krypton. The young lady chose to retreat. Using space technology, she could completely simulate the environment of Krypton, but it was not necessary. Kara also knew that this was all an illusion. She was very satisfied to see her hometown again. She was full of energy again. Karaoke played crazily for a whole day. She was so tired that she did not even recover when she sang in the evening. As the goddess of art, Thea's voice had reached a level beyond the sound of nature. However, she did not steal the limelight. She sang a simple song with Diana and then left the stage to karaoke. Surprisingly, Supergirl was very talented in music. She sang a few songs very beautifully. According to her boast, the word karaoke in her name meant karaoke. After confirming her love, Supergirl finally walked out of the confusion and glowed with her own spirit. Chapter 800. According to Thea's estimation, with the power of the Iyer family and the wisdom of the Luthor family, Kara might go further than Superman in the future. At the end of the party, Dionysus showed its power again. The heroines and policewomen were drunk and went back to their rooms to sleep. The group of women played around for a whole day. Diana went back to teach her apprentice, and Thea began to think about the future. The Guardians seemed to have replaced Hal Jordan because Hal had repeatedly disobeyed orders. But the truth was not that simple. According to the Yellow Lamp and the Green Lamp, the Green Lantern Corps had been on the move recently, which meant that they had begun to plot against the entire universe. There was only one enemy that could make the emotionless little blue man so anxious, and that was the imminent arrival of the Dark Knight. They were eliminating unstable factors. Hal Jordan was a troublemaker, and there was no doubt that they would take him down first. Thea had also thought about stopping this disaster, but unfortunately, this was the will of the universe. If there was life, there would be death. Everything was caused by the laws of nature. She could not stop it, nor could she stop it. The consciousness of this universe was much stronger than that of Earth too. Once she stood on the opposite side of it, Thea felt that some ghost stranger would jump out at her in the next second. In fact, there was a good way to deal with the Dark Knight once and for all, and that was to cremate the entire universe. If the bodies were burned, you would not be able to stand up even if you wanted to. But she also knew that this was unrealistic. According to incomplete statistics, 90% of the planets in the universe carried out burials. The few planets that Thea had been to all carried out burials. Nearly 1 million bodies of Green Lanterns were buried in the cemetery of the main planet of Ura. Many of these people were the greatest Green Lanterns when they were alive. If Thea proposed to burn the bodies of these people, she might as well lead the Yellow and Green Lamps to war with the Green Lamps. Not to mention the distant alien planets, she could not even deal with Earth. Except for a few countries in Asia that carried out cremation, most countries carried out burials. The resistance to this matter was so great that the power of the president could not be pushed through at all. She had to re-enter a monarchical society. If she forced it, she estimated that she would have to kill hundreds of millions of people. Furthermore, the deceased relatives of superheroes were all buried. Even Diana's Paradise Island was buried. Did they burn all their corpses? It was possible that she had killed more people than she did on the night of darkness. Did she have nothing better to do? Soon, she arrived at a secret base of the Heaven's Eye Society. Diana had talked to her before she left. Clown Girl didn't seem to have done anything wrong. It was inhumane for Amanda to put a bomb in her neck and risk her life for her. Moreover, the ugly girl had performed meritorious deeds during Darkseid's invasion. Was it possible to release her on that basis? Thea also felt that the clown girl was slowly getting better. She was a little crazy, but not to the point where she was unscrupulous. She decided to fish her out and observe her for a while. She went straight to the Heavenly Eye Society and told Amanda that she wanted to take the ugly girl away. "Can you tell me your reasons?" Black Panther didn't look too good. She felt a little embarrassed when Lin Fan came to ask for her in such a blatant way. "What reason do you want? Government approval? A special pardon? A thank you letter signed by the Justice League? You can think of anything. I can find it for you," Thea said, amused. She was very confident in facing the Heavenly Eye Society now. No one in the system could beat her. Amanda sighed. "You can take the ugly girl away, but—" "No buts," Thea answered calmly. She was in a different position. She had no right to talk about conditions. The two quickly completed the procedures. "I can go now?" Clown Girl, who was practicing gymnastics in her cell, was a little surprised when the bomb was taken out. Amanda didn't look too good. She slammed the door and left. Clown Girl looked around in confusion. After a while, she realized something. "Oh, little Thea, are you here to save me?" Thea ignored her. "Gym guard? Then I'll be leaving? Haha." The guard looked at her blankly. "Lawton, I'm leaving." Death Archer's eyes almost popped out when he saw Clown Girl waving at him from outside the cell. "Can I stay by your side forever? Until death? Why did you run away when those words were still ringing in my ears? Don't send me off. I'm leaving. I'll come back to see you guys later." Clown Girl was still yelling at the prison door. Her voice was full of energy. It was obvious that she was very happy. Thea quickly pulled this troublemaker into the car. If she continued to taunt, half of the people in the prison would come out and beat her up. Thea didn't dare to throw this crazy person into society. She locked her up in the administrative committee and let Bao Lang watch her for a few days to see what would happen. After dealing with Clown Girl, she returned to the vanishing point in less than 10 minutes. Ballistics and extreme speed, the two extreme speed. She had to check on their results. This is a magician from the 64th century. Extreme speed pulled over a middle-aged man with white hair. His eyes were unfocused and his words were frivolous. Thea opened the records of Arcane Core's eye and looked at it carefully. The number of crimes this magician committed was shocking. In his eyes, all humans were like NPCs in a game. It was not uncommon for him to kill people. Not only did he commit crimes in the parallel universe, but he also did many bad things in Thea's original universe. The Heaven's Eye Society even planned several capture operations, but unfortunately, he used future technology to evade them. "Don't look at me like that. Future person, do you think you're better than others? As far as I know, in the 30th century, the Superhero Legion has already issued an iron law forbidding time travel. Your era is 3,000 years later than theirs. How dare you ignore the human agreement? You're unforgivable." Magician's eyes were full of contempt. Even if he became a prisoner, he still didn't think he would be in trouble. In his opinion, even if these people from the 21st century could travel through time, their knowledge was no different from prehistoric humans. Thea reached out and tapped his forehead. A bright light flashed and her finger was blown away by an explosion. Both of them were surprised. "Nano body structure? You're not even human now, right?" Thea looked like she saw a new toy. This guy had modified his body to a terrifying level. Magician was also shocked. Even with the power suppression handcuffs, he still didn't think anyone could kill him. In this primitive era, any weapon should stop in front of the crystallization of future technology. This was also the reason why he dared to do whatever he wanted. But just now, Thea's casual move made his heart palpitate. "Don't look at me. I don't have any psychological burden if I kill you." Thea smiled and pointed again. This time she used her divine power. The nanobody couldn't resist the soul extraction. Magician's face was filled with confusion. He fell to the ground with a dull gaze. He was already dead. Mr. Speed, bring the other prisoner. Thea kept the soul fragment. The reason why she showed her skills was to kill the scum and also to intimidate Speed. The second prisoner was brought up. It was a red-haired boy who was less than 1.5 meters tall. He was terrified as he was dragged out by Speed. Yo, this is a famous person. Bart Allen of the Speed family. Thea flipped through the records. Just as she had expected, this child did not commit any crimes at all. It was more or less like he was caught to vent his anger at the speed of light. Chapter 801. Thea glanced at him expressionlessly, and he quickly lowered his head. She flipped through the records of the Eye of Arcane Nuclei. When the boy traveled through time for the first time, Thea said kindly, "Shall I send you back to your original time?" The boy saw that she was friendly, so he quickly gestured with his hands. "It's too fast, slow down." "Oh, okay, whatever." The boy couldn't control his speed at all. He gestured with his hands and spoke too fast. If not for Thea's super speed, she would have only seen a blur in front of her. The English of the future was very different from the present. Fortunately, she had the divine trait of being proficient in languages, or else she would have been confused. The boy saw that she could keep up with his speed, so he gestured even more enthusiastically. "Oh, you're here to find your grandfather? It must be hard on you. This journey is long. Okay, I'll take you there." Thea waved her hand and pulled the boy to the Advanced Technology Laboratory. In the Advanced Technology Laboratory, the Lightning Squad was having a meeting to figure out how to get Wally West out of the space of seraphic speed. The initial plan was to rely on Psyker's shockwave ability to find the entrance to the space of seraphic speed, and then Barry would run in to save him. Could be said that this plan was rough and helpless. They didn't know what kind of danger they would encounter and whether they could come out alive. Barry and Wally weren't friends at all. He was only willing to take this risk for Ayers and his adoptive father Joe. The young mistress's visit surprised everyone. "Thea, what's the matter?" Barry had just opened his mouth when he saw the half-grown child beside Thea run to his side, hugging his waist and calling out affectionately. "Grandpa, I finally found you." The boy shouted excitedly. In order for him to be able to shout this sentence normally so that the ordinary people could hear him clearly, the young mistress even cast a deceleration spell on him. At the same time, she also taught him modern English again. Hiss! Thea thought she heard a loud gasp. She covered her mouth and snickered. She didn't treat herself as an outsider at all. She found a chair and sat down, ready to watch the show. Barry was stunned. His neck stiffened as he turned to look at Ayers, only to see the black girl's face turning green. What was the meaning of this? This old lady hasn't been killed by Savita yet, and your grandson has already run out? Even though Ayers was just an ordinary person, she had seen the yellow lightning when the boy ran. This was clearly the power of Godspeed. Blackie's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She crossed her arms and waited for Barry to explain. Student little Sean was already panicking. He didn't know where to put his hands. He looked at Thea with a bitter face. "Big sister, where did you pick this kid up from? Don't trick me. I supported you in the Righteous Alliance conference." Cough, cough. Thea coughed softly. "I found this child in the timeline. He came from the 30th century. This explanation made Ayers even angrier. She was just an ordinary person. Without the power of speed, she did not think that she could live to the 30th century. At this moment, even Barry's adoptive father, Joe West, didn't look too good. However, he was an experienced policeman. He had seen a lot of storms and was much more rational than the young people. Half kneeling on the ground, he revealed a smile that he thought was very amiable as he stroked Bart Allen's head. "Child, who's your father?" "Don Allen." The little boy still knew the answer to this question. Barry found that everyone's eyes were focused on him. He hurriedly spread out his hands and shook his head, indicating that he knew nothing. "What Don Allen? He had never heard of him." "What about your mother?" "Melanie Swan. Who? Swan. This was the surname of Reverse Lightning Albert Swan. This surname was very lethal. Except for Thea, who was blatantly watching the show in Wales, and his daughter from Earth 2, the rest of the Lightning Squad were shocked. They looked at Barry as if he was an enemy. Reverse Lightning was their greatest enemy. How could your son be mixed up with his descendant? Just as Thea was about to take out her melon seeds and peanuts to watch the show, a long-distance communication interrupted her. She read the message twice and thought for a while. She stood up and stroked Bart Allen's little head. Okay, stay with your family and play. I have something to do. I'll leave first. Goodbye, sister. The child waved to her from behind. Thea happily left the cutting-edge technology laboratory. 10 minutes later, she arrived at Odium, which was known as the most beautiful planet in the universe. It was the new base of the Blue Lantern Corps. The two guardians, Gandhi and Sed, had entered the deepest part of the universe to explore the secrets of the Dark Knight, leaving behind a small army of Blue Lanterns. However, it was at this moment that an enemy called the Strange Insectoids set their sights on the peaceful Blue Lanterns. The two guardians were not there. As the leader of the Blue Lantern Corps, the Saint directly asked Thea for help. She agreed without much thought. The Yellow Lanterns and Blue Lanterns each sent out 500 people. The large group arrived at Odium. There was a reason why this place was called the most beautiful in the universe. Among the beautiful mountains and rivers, many of the Yellow Lanterns who were good at fighting felt calm. There were mountains, rivers, and warm and hospitable natives here. In addition, the Saints spared no effort to transform the environment with the light of hope. It even made people feel as if they were in heaven. What a great place! The eldest son of Zeus also came. He was still dressed in the same way, with a dragon skin coat and a stone pillar-like sword. The only change was that his hostility had disappeared. His face was full of compassion, like an elder who had washed away all his glory. Your Majesty, thank you for coming to help. The Saint did not care about his subordinates around him. He knelt down in front of Thea and bowed deeply. Thea hurriedly helped him up and briefly explained the situation. The Saint was under a lot of pressure. Unfortunately, he had a soft personality. His catchphrase was, "Everything will be fine." His way of dealing with troublesome matters was to wait and see. Wait for a pie to fall from the sky. Anyway, according to his theory, everything would be fine. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Blue Lanterns were just 2 or 3 big cats. It was too difficult to obtain the emotion of hope. They only had 3 official members. One was the Saint, the planet Mogo, who was tricked into coming here, and the other was an alien who looked like an elephant spirit in Journey to the West. He was called Walls. It was a fool's dream to rely on the 3 of them to resist the army of the sharp insectoids. Those were the insectoids. Just by hearing the name, one would know that the enemy was huge. No matter how good the Lanterns were at fighting, they had to kneel down and call the insectoids daddy. Now, with the strong support of the Yellow Lanterns and Blue Lanterns, the situation was much better. Especially with Thea, the eldest son, who was especially good at fighting and was not limited by the energy of the Lantern Ring. The Saint finally let out a sigh of relief. Your Majesty, today we have a new brother joining the Blue Lanterns. Sure enough, everything is better. Are you interested in coming and taking a look? The Saint suggested excitedly. Chapter 802. Thea had no objections. She ordered her subordinates to set up camp while she brought eldest son, Qingnu, and Akiro to watch the fun. She first greeted Mogo, who was like a satellite in the orbit of Odium from more than 300,000 kilometers away. The will of the baby planet was very happy, and the emotions it transmitted were all joy, excitement, and the like. Then she saw the 3rd member of the Blue Lamp, Walls. He was like the elephant spirit of Lion Camel Ridge. He had an elephant head, a long nose, and big ears. He floated in the air with his hands opening and closing, as if he was practicing some kind of spell. Thea's identity as a yellow lamp did not attract much attention from the elephant spirit, but her identity as a true god made him prostrate himself in admiration. Did you practice to this level by yourself? Thea took a closer look. This was really amazing. The Saint obtained the blue lamp because of her cheat. Mogo was the will of the planet. Intelligent life forms were dregs in front of the will of the planet, but this elephant head was different. He had practiced to this level alive, and always maintained hope and persevered. Even Thea was a little moved. She thought for a moment, reached out, and a ray of light entered Wals's forehead. Countless illusions flashed through the eyes of the third blue lamp, and then he solemnly bowed to Thea. Thea accepted it calmly. She had given out many theories of Earth's eminent monks. She was not suitable for these things, but the one in front of her was very suitable. After that, they visited the Blue Lamp's training ground. The official members were few, but the number of reserve members was barely acceptable. Thea looked around. There were more than 200 members who used temporary light rings, and everyone's face was full of happiness and happiness. To be honest, any one of these people was more positive than her. But the feeling of hope came and went quickly. It was only a step away from despair, and it was very difficult to maintain this feeling at all times. "Is that your new member?" Thea pointed to an alien sitting cross-legged in the middle of the square. This alien had a big orange head and 2 eyes like a goldfish. His eyes were watery, as if he had suffered a lot and suffered a lot. His sitting posture was similar to the elephant spirit, Wals. It was most likely the elephant spirit's private training method. One of his hands was raised in front of his chest, and his 4 fingers were as thin as chopsticks. This man's face was bitter, and his body was as thin as a stick. Just by looking at his appearance, one could tell that he was the type that was easy to bully. Thea face-bombed. How could the Blue Lanterns be any weaker? Everything will be fine. Just by relying on these guys. You should at least find someone who can fight. Yes, this is Sean. He just reached the level of an official blue lamp yesterday. The saint usually spoke slowly and in a soft voice. Add one more. I'll find one for you. Thea's gaze searched through the remaining blue lanterns. The battle is imminent, so I'll form a small team of 5 for you. At first glance, it was shocking. There was no one like the yellow lamp instructor, Akilo, who weighed more than 500 kilograms, had arms that could run horses, and thighs that could drive cars. She didn't know if this feeling of hope was biased towards people with small bodies, or if the saint had a problem with his eyesight. These 200-plus reserves all looked thin and withered. Thea lowered her standards again and again. Finally, she picked a tall female alien. She should be the one. A blue light flashed, and her feeling of hope was raised to the standard of an official blue lamp. With a new member, the saint was overjoyed. After a little arrangement, the woman named Circe also became an official blue lamp worker. The day of fear, the night of pain, the raging fire retreats coldly. All are lost in the fire of war. Looking up at the stars, the light of hope will never be extinguished. After a simple ceremony, 2 more blue lanterns were added. After watching the show, they began to discuss the matter of retreating from the enemy. That's right, the goal was to retreat from the enemy. The plan to kill the enemy was not an option at all. The home planet of the sharp insect race is in Sector 9. Their forces are spread across the surrounding 31 galaxies, and they control Sectors 9 and 10. They are an extremely powerful civilization. The saint, who was still in a feudal society and thought that there were only a few people on his planet, suddenly sat in the position of a leader. Facing the fierce alien enemies, to be honest, he was a little powerless. He was more optimistic and was still thinking of ways to maintain the situation. However, no one laughed at him. The terror of the insect race was well known by all civilizations that entered the universe era. No one dared to provoke them. Now that they had gathered the power of 3 lanterns, the Odin people were not weak. They also had some battleship weapons, but these added together could only resist 1 or 2. If they had time to study how to defeat the enemy, it was better to think about retreating. Even Thea did not want to start a war with the insect race. There was no need to win or lose. The insect race's reproductive ability was the best in the universe, and she would be distressed for half a day if she lost 1 lantern. Starting a war between the 2 sides was simply using porcelain to smash a jar. The goddess of trade would never do such a loss-making thing. What's more, now that the Guardians had begun to make preparations to deal with the Dark Knight, she could not fall behind. It was different from the fog in the book of Oa's prophecy and the guardian's wild imagination. She knew the details of the dark night. It was not a weapon, nor was it the end of the world. It was the rebirth of the dead. To deal with the countless dead that crawled out of their graves, was there a better fighter than the insect race? She joined the war with the purpose of making the enemy surrender. In her opinion, there were very few things in the universe that could not be traded. The sharp insect race must have needs. If you have difficulties, I will help you solve your difficulties. What a good thing. What? No difficulties? If there were no difficulties, Goddess Thea would change her avatar to create some difficulties for them. After asking about the sharp insect race's habitat, she did not let anyone protect her and flew over by herself. Of course, the reason was to investigate the enemy. In a few breaths, she crossed several sectors and arrived at the sharp insect race's main planet. It was a bit of a stretch to call it the main planet. The sharp insect race was very small at first, and they were not the rulers of the mother planet. However, after continuous reproduction and evolution, they finally took the planet from the hands of intelligent life and began to expand wildly. The original main planet quickly became a desert. The Cortex Prime could not move, so they plundered planets with beautiful scenery and resources from the universe and used biological means to connect the newly conquered planets to the already barren mother planet. The sharp insect race that Thea saw was now an irregular celestial body. It was like a huge arthropod lying in the universe. The original planet was in the middle, and there were 7 or 8 planets outside that were grabbed together by tentacles that covered the sky. The nature of plundering seemed to be engraved in the genes of this race. The appearance of the planet conveyed a belief to intelligent life. We will not compromise, we will not admit defeat, and we will fight to the last soldier. Chapter 803. Interesting. Thea was bold because of her skill. She watched for a long time. The strange insectoids were not incompetent either. In less than a minute, 7 strangely shaped, half-biological, half-mechanical battleships came out aggressively. They did not waste any time and opened fire as soon as they entered the range. At the same time, the energy shield was activated and the main cannon began to charge. The young lady was not stupid enough to take the bombardment of the main cannon head-on. She felt that she was here to do business, so she did not fight the battleships head-on. Her drifting figure moved left and right, passing through the many cannon fire. She flew through the gaps between the battleships and landed on the planet's surface far away. Boom! She had just entered the atmosphere when 2 white lasers came at her. Thea did not even look at them. She waved her hand and deflected the 2 lasers, returning them to their original owners. In the 2 explosions, she landed on the ground. On the desolate and dead planet, there were only stones and stones. There was no vegetation at all. It could be said that the main planet of the strange insectoids was dead. Swoosh! Swoosh! 7 or 8 beetle-shaped robots with blue shells surrounded her. Oh, it's rare to see humanoid creatures on this planet. Are you insectoids? Why are you working for them? Thea looked at these blue and black exoskeleton robots and felt that they were familiar. Who were they? She vaguely remembered that they were heroes. A few armored insectoids communicated with each other in short words. It was not language but some kind of special signal. A few robots quickly ran away and surrounded Thea. At the same time, their armor began to transform. Some turned into cannon barrels, some into sharp blades. There was no doubt that they were besieging her. Only one guy hid far away, waving his hands and saying something to her. Thea was curious. She looked at this weird guy and finally found the corresponding character in her memory. This guy was Blue Beetle from the Young Titans. Why did he run so far away? This was Sector 9. It was half the universe away from Sector 2814 of Earth. However, this was not the time to chat. There were a bunch of enemies around. A bunch of cannon fodder. Thea snorted, clenched her fists, and smashed them into the void. Invisible ripples hit the enemies, and the robots all stopped moving, maintaining their dull and stiff postures, not moving at all. Now, her understanding of the soul had deepened, and her use of various techniques had reached a very high level. These aliens captured by the insectoids and put on insectoid armor were all turned into idiots by the soul shock. Thea casually walked out of the encirclement and stood in front of Blue Beetle. She looked at him curiously. She was here to discuss business today, so she was dressed very casually. Their initial plan was to use peaceful means before resorting to force. If they really couldn't come to an agreement, they would change their identities to create difficulties. The beige leather jacket and blue jeans made him look handsome, but on this desert-like alien planet, he looked very different. The young mistress walked in front of Blue Beetle and knocked on her mask. Blue Beetle's right hand turned into a long sword and slashed upwards. Kid, if you can't control this machine, I won't go easy on you. Thea reached out 2 fingers and clamped the blade. No matter how much energy the machine channeled, it didn't move an inch. After a while, the machine seemed to realize that it was no match for her. The blade turned back into a part of the glove, and Thea let go of it. Like an old machine, Blue Beetle's mask made a series of loud clicking sounds. A young boy's face slowly emerged from the armor. The boy had obvious Mexican features. He had a round face and small eyes. Now the boy's face was full of panic. When he saw Thea, it was as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. You are Miss Quinn, right? You are from Earth, right? Is the Justice League here to save me? After he finished speaking, he looked around as if he was looking for Superman and Batman. Thea felt that the boy was a little nervous and didn't use his brain. Would the League cross half the universe to save an ordinary person? The League isn't here. I'm just passing by. I'm from Texas. My father owns a car repair factory. This thing wants me to join the war. I want to go home, but this... The boy pointed at his armor and spoke incoherently for a long time. Thea hugged her shoulders and listened as if nothing had happened. When the boy said he wanted to go home for the 3rd time, she asked, "What's your name, boy?" "Jamie Reyes, I." The boy slowly calmed down and looked at Thea's outfit. To be honest, in the boy's heart, Thea was not as good as him. At least he had a suit of armor. This big sister in front of him came to an alien planet in casual clothes. "Okay, Mr. Reyes, how did you come to this star field? Is this place far from Earth?" The boy began to tell a long story. He accidentally obtained a fist-sized Blue Beetle statue from a gang fight. After that, like many protagonists in novels, he dripped his blood on the statue and activated the device. The Blue Beetle woke up and used him as the host to become an alien weapon. The remote signal received the news that the sharp strange insectoids were going to war with the blue lamp. The armor flew countless light years away and returned to the mother planet without a care. Just as he was in a state of panic, the lady descended from the sky. Oh, the story isn't complicated. The boy wanted to refute that it wasn't a story, but he didn't dare. Your armor is very interesting. How about this, when you return to Earth, give this person a call and ask her to help you research it. See if she can modify some of the commands so that you can control it. After Thea finished speaking, she took out a notebook under the boy's confused gaze. She tore off a piece of paper, wrote down Felicity's phone number, and handed it to the boy. The boy's face was full of suspicion. "Big sister, can our phone call reach so far away?" Then, he saw a sky-blue glow in Thea's hand, and a very magical vortex appeared in front of him. "Go in. Didn't you say you wanted to go home? But I didn't record the teleportation point in Texas. This should be Star City. Maybe I'll let you change the car twice?" The boy almost knelt down. "You're really a kind person. Not to mention Star City, as long as he could return to Earth or the South Pole, he would be happy." Gritting his teeth, he closed his eyes and rushed into the portal. After the small interlude, Thea activated her supervision. She wanted to find the boss here and ask if it had any difficulties. The insectoids that came out of the ground were killed with a slap. Those that could turn invisible were burned into fireballs. Those that could spray acid were greeted with lightning magic. In short, Thea walked neither fast nor slow in order to show off her strength. She also wanted to take the opportunity to see if this insectoid had the ability to do business with her. Chapter 804. A single Zerg was not strong. Even an ordinary person on Earth could fight them one-on-one with weapons. In a horror movie, A group of ordinary people could kill them with fire axes. However, once the Zerg reached a large scale, they would be terrifying. Boom! With a loud explosion, a wall of fire more than 10 meters high and 100 meters long was created out of thin air. She pushed it towards the oncoming sea of Zerg. In the high temperature of over 1,000 degrees, less than 1 in 1,000 survived. Thea stomped on the ground with her left foot and used a large earthquake spell to bury the remaining Zerg. Almost no soul. That's really bad. She sighed as she walked in. Large-scale soul magic had little effect on the Zerg. They did not have souls. Even if the little soul in their bodies was extracted, it would not affect them much. The Zerg were driven by their instincts. No matter how deep her understanding of souls was, it would be useless. This caused Thea's earth-shattering strength to be reduced by more than half. This problem could not be ignored. The Zerg did not have many souls. The corpses that were resurrected in the night of darkness did not have any souls. There was no need to talk about wealth and trade. They were all dead. No matter how much wealth she had, it would be useless. Souls, wealth, trade, literature. The corpses could be said to be immune to the 4 divine positions in her hands. If they really fought, Miss Thea would not be as useful as Diana. This was also the main reason why she came to help the sharp Zerg. When she reached a canyon, she could not walk anymore. Zerg filled her vision. There were all kinds of Zerg that she had seen before and never seen before. There were Zerg that looked like combat-type Zerg. They bared their teeth and were ready to fight to the death. There were also Zerg with big bellies. They looked like Zerg that specialized in reproduction. They filled the entire space. The Cortex Prime seemed to be confused. Thea could not help but think. The Cortex Prime was completely frightened by her direct attack. Now that it had sent out all its forces, it seemed like it would rather die than live in dishonor. Ha ha! Her clear and bright laughter rang through the entire valley. She moved her shoulders. She had killed at least 1 million Zerg along the way. The Zerg's technological capabilities were not low. Many of them were half-machine and half-living creatures. They had good fighting abilities and perfect cooperation. It took a lot of effort to kill them. She was really tired. Hey, the guy inside, I'm here to do business with you. I don't believe you. The insectoid mastermind did not believe it at all. You've killed your way to my doorstep, saying that you're here for business? Are you kidding me? You can buy anything and sell anything. Have you heard the slogan of our anything you want? Thea put a white hand to her mouth and shouted into the valley. Is this whatever house very famous? The insectoid mastermind expressed that it did not understand. However, it wasn't a kind soul either. It was being attacked at its doorstep, yet it still wanted to chat in a soft voice? What a joke! While Thea was waiting, it directly mobilized a large amount of energy to erect a vast protective shield in the valley. The dark blue shield was like a pot lid, completely blocking the entire valley. With a single command from the mainframe, all the Zergs charged towards Thea in a frenzy. As for the logistical insects, he left them by his side. Firstly, they had no combat power at all. Secondly, he was afraid that if they all died, he would have problems controlling the insects. Psychokinesis. Thea saw through the enemy's trick. She also used a protective shield, but she used a silver flame shield. All the Zergs that charged towards her were burned to ashes. She did not even look at the Zergs, but at the mainframe's shield. This time, she did not use any soul wealth divine power techniques. Thea clenched her right hand into a fist, imitating the scene of the Heavenly Father killing Superman with a single punch from the Creator planet. She only used her divine power and did not use any special characteristics. This punch was pure physical strength. Thea wanted to see the difference between herself and the Heavenly Father. She took a deep breath and ignored the Zergs that were like moths to a flame. Violent air currents surged around her, and the remains of the Zergs were sent flying in the air. When her aura and strength had accumulated to the highest point, Thea fiercely threw out a punch. Vaguely, the sound of air being torn apart could be heard. The force of the punch caused a 3-mile-long, 100-meter-wide deep trench on the ground. Countless insectoids that could not fly were directly turned into dust. The air was squeezed to the sides, and the shadow of the fist rushed out a few miles. The originally white fist had become a 100-meter-tall fist in front of the mainframe's shield. This punch carried the power of a thunderbolt and fiercely hit the dark blue shield. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Thea was a little depressed. She did not break it. Huge spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the shield. Countless telekinesis was quickly used to repair the cracks and repair the damage. The mainframe barely blocked it, but it did. Sigh, after all, I'm not a warrior. Looks like I won't be able to use powerful attacks in the future. She shook her head and sighed unhappily. After that, she did not gather any mana or cast any spells. She threw out a few meters-long flaming javelin with a silver-white flame tail. Crack! The flaming javelin hit the spot where the fist landed. This time, the shield could not hold on and directly shattered into pieces. Hey! If you don't come out, I'm really going to leave. Thea thought that she was a reasonable person. She was not going to walk up to the mainframe and talk nonsense. According to her understanding, this mainframe had no combat power, no defense, and no mobility. It was a person without the three. If a human nuclear bomb like her walked in front of it, it would not be able to resist at all. The principle of a transaction was that both sides should be equal. She was not going to go overboard. She waited for 10 seconds. The air above the valley changed rapidly and was finally squeezed into a slightly ugly face by telekinesis. The mainframe was forced to show itself. In fact, it was helpless. Could not tell whether a strong person like Thea was just passing by or was here to seek revenge. No matter what, it had to take it. The strong were respected. This was especially obvious in this kind of universe. Could not figure out Thea's goal, and did not know where her people were or if they had any weaknesses. If she came to visit every 2 or 3 days, it would not be able to stop her or fight her. That would be the end of it. So it had to come out no matter what, or at least ask the other party's intentions. Using telekinesis, the somewhat human-like face sized up Thea. Which strong person in the universe are you? Why have you come to the sharp insect tribe? Sia laughed and said something that even she didn't believe. I'm here with friendship. It must be very difficult for you to live in this bitter and cold place. Do you need anything? The mainframe wanted to say, we don't need anything. If we need anything, we can get it ourselves. We don't need anything from you. But the mainframe that had gathered all of the insect tribe's intelligence still had some instincts to avoid harm. It did not dare to retort. It definitely had not heard of the saying, I'm a fish on the chopping block, but the logic was the same. The Cortex Prime was speechless at the fact that this great god had come to its bandit lair to force a sale. Its plan was that no matter what he was selling, it would grit its teeth and buy it, as long as he left in a good mood. What do you think we need? The mainframe's heart was bleeding. It had already prepared to spend a lot of money and wanted to send her away quickly. Thea's eyes were as bright as the stars. For a moment, it was so bright that even the mainframe's avatar was a little unstable. She finally stopped. I am the Lord of Souls. You don't have souls. I can sell you some blank souls. Do you want them? Thea gave herself a new avatar. Ah! Suddenly hearing such shocking news, the mainframe's telekinesis face dissipated into gas. It hurriedly reformed again. Is what you said true? Souls can be traded? How much do you need to pay? Thea was laughing in her heart. As expected, selling what you needed to the person who needed it was the way to go. Seeing the other party so eager, she prepared to ask for an exorbitant price. She pretended to be very serious. I am the Lord of Souls. My words are the law. Souls can be created and destroyed. Naturally, they can be traded. I want the sharp insect tribe to fight for me. Her words were ambiguous, and in the insectoid mastermind's interpretation, she was fighting for herself. Could this be a newly risen powerhouse? She did not have any subordinates, so she set her sights on the sharp insect tribe. Chapter 805. The division of power in the universe had long been clear. The Green Lantern Corps' so-called maintenance of peace in the universe was more of a maintenance of the situation. There were many areas they couldn't manage and didn't dare to manage. The Kryptonians of the past, Mungo and his son, and the current strange insectoids, they couldn't manage them. In the insectoid mastermind's view, Thea was here to recruit them. After all, the barbaric way the insectoids grew was rejected by all intelligent life. They were currently the only force in the universe that didn't have a leader. However, the mastermind didn't hastily give the order. Couldn't bow down to her right away. At the very least, it had to see how much change the Soul King could bring to the strange insectoids. Honorable Sovereign, the strange insectoids are willing to accept your glory. Please respond to our humble request. The mastermind lowered its stance, but the meaning behind its words was that it wouldn't act until it saw a rabbit. Thea stretched out a finger. I have a pure soul in my finger. It has no memories and no past. I know you can't see it, but you can find a member of your race and I'll demonstrate it to you. She originally wanted to treat it as a business deal, but for some reason, the mastermind seemed to have misunderstood something. The mistress didn't mention anything about the deal anymore. In the mastermind's view, this was only natural. This was the Soul King. What a grand name. No lightning struck her when she shouted out such a grand name. This meant that the will of the universe recognized her. Why would such a big shot want to do business with them? Zhang Xian pondered for a moment, and with a thought, a winged tribesman flew over. The siren had recently obtained a lot of souls. After repeated research, Thea now had the ability to stuff souls into her body. One had to know that she had always been the type of person who didn't care about burying. It was difficult to stuff a living person's soul into her body. The various mental, physical, and memory problems were very complicated. She didn't have a good solution. However, the insectoids were different. Their souls were naturally thin. Thea had taken a look at the insectoid's internal structure. The insectoid's body structure was for evolution. They had countless advantages, but the rapid evolution of their bodies and the constant replacement of their genetic chains also affected their souls to a certain extent. To be honest, they were too casual. For a long time, many insectoids lived in a muddle-headed state and could only rely on the mastermind to coordinate their work. Having a soul, having memories, and being able to think independently, this was the symbol of intelligent life. If the sharp insectoids obtained a soul, then they might be called them. This was the most important thing in history. Thea did not use the soul fragments of Earthlings. Due to the existence of spirits, the essence of life on Earth was much higher than that of aliens. Be it from an emotional or practical point of view, even the souls of some bad guys were not suitable for the insectoids. But after a long period of research, she still had some insights. She made a lot of fake soul fragments using magic power to simulate soul waves, manually adding memories, and then erasing them. Finally, she used a bit of soul divine power to solidify them, creating a blank fragment. He picked through the soul fragments in his hand. The insectoids had a short lifespan, so he found a 10-year lifespan essence. It was originally a memory-erasing imitation, and now it was just right to use it on the insectoids. She observed for a while and found a few nodes. With a soft shout, the shard entered through the veins of the soul. Silent and invisible waves blew around. The cortex prime, with its amazing psychokinesis, sensed something strange and looked at the insectoid cautiously. The insectoid who obtained the soul was confused. Took a long time before he realized what was happening. He had feelings and the concept of self was born. The cortex prime looked at the insectoid gloomily. After a long time, it looked at Thea and said, "Your Majesty, please wait for a moment. I'll be right back." After that, it rolled up the new insectoid and ran back. Thea did not stop it. As the cortex prime, its consciousness was actually the strongest. Once the insectoid escaped from its control, it would be able to sense it at the first moment. As the cortex prime, it would not allow a strong sense of self to threaten its rule. It captured the insectoid who had just developed a sense of self. It would be up to it whether to cut it into pieces or cut it into pieces for research. Thea stopped in the air and waited. The cortex prime returned quickly. This time it was even more respectful. It chose its words carefully. "This soul is too strong. Do you have a soul that matches the characteristics of the insectoids?" Thea almost laughed out loud. This guy was afraid that its control would be affected by the strength of its subordinates. This was already an incomplete replica soul. Did it want a lower-level one? It was easy to get a lower-level item, but difficult to get a higher-level item. Thea naturally liked to get her hands on lower-level items. However, she had already changed her target. She wanted to subdue the Cortex Prime directly. "Don't beat around the bush with me. I have no interest in your insectoid rule. Instead of weakening your subordinates, why don't you strengthen yourself? Do you have any requests? Become an intelligent life form, abandon that shell, and walk the earth freely. Lead the insectoids to victory after victory." Thea's words were very soft, but in the Cortex Prime's ears, it was like a thunderbolt. Temptation, a demonic temptation. The Cortex Prime was not stupid. Once it opened its spiritual world and Thea did something, it would not even know how it died. The insectoids will still be yours. The only difference is that you can leave this barren planet and walk under the sun like an intelligent life form. You can soar in space and enjoy the beauty that you would never have experienced in the past. Is this a difficult choice for you? The danger was not small, but the temptation was even greater. After a full 10 minutes, the Cortex Prime finally made up its mind. "Your Majesty, please come in for a detailed discussion." The Cortex Prime's projection turned into a cluster of telekinetic fragments and dissipated in the air. The insectoid guards below also opened up a path. Walking through the complex mountains, Thea finally saw the Cortex Prime's main body. Within the transparent membrane was an incomparably large brain. It was the size of a small mountain, lying quietly and somewhat lethargic in the stone room. Its telekinetic energy was constantly affecting everything around it. It was obvious that it was not trying to show off. It was just that the energy was too strong and it was a little out of control. The Cortex Prime also had 4 limbs, but they had severely degenerated and looked like a few ornaments. There were 3 tubes behind the brain, and a dark green liquid was constantly being injected into the brain. "You're about to die." Thea was too lazy to look at those particularly disgusting places. She only glanced at it briefly and understood its situation. Even with the help of the liquid, it only had a few years left to live. Of course, this was under the premise that its soul was not swapped out. Its original soul was too weak to carry such a huge amount of brain power. Silent death. The insectoids fought bravely until a new overmind was born. It would inherit everything that it had devoured. This was the iron law that they had lived by for tens of thousands of years. Originally, it was waiting for death, but today, it met with a turn of events. The threat of death made it not speak nonsense. It opened up its spiritual world and chose to surrender. Chapter 806. Sia directly left a mark in the deepest part of the mind of the mastermind. Once the other party became her enemy, they would die a very miserable death. Sia was not polite at all. She left a mark on the mastermind. It was a strange fate. Originally, she wanted to do business, but now, she had to take the entire Zerg with her. Thea did not look down on the Zerg like the other strong people in the universe. They were born to be useful, and there was no better fighter than the Zerg to deal with the Dark Knight. She was not stingy with this subordinate who took the initiative to bring the entire tribe to her. With the Zerg's biological technology and her Kryptonian genetic knowledge, a large amount of precious materials mixed with magic power to create the body, and divine power to shape the body, Thea considered that this was her subordinate, so a female body was necessary. At the same time, to make it more human-like and closer to the people on Earth, Thea used an authentic 30-year-old soul essence. Transfer your spiritual power into the new body. The Cortex Prime opened a gap in the lobe, and a pure, silver-white light jumped out and rushed into the new body. The insectoids outside the cave instantly lost control. Their simple minds did not know what was going on. Some of them began to kill their own kind, while others rushed into the cave in a panic. The few blue beetles that Sia had knocked down earlier had also awakened their consciousness, and they ran out in a panic. Thea did not care about them. If they wanted to run, then run. One more would not make a difference. The blue beetle's biological armor could not be popularized. Why should the Zerg take the elite route? Numbers were the king. She waved her hand and closed the cave entrance. Her eyes were as bright as the stars, and she began to transfer the soul into the new body. The Cortex Prime's spiritual power was a mixture of a new soul and a new body, and the requirements for matching in all aspects were extraordinarily high. Sia, who could already call herself the Lord of Souls, busied herself for an entire day before she managed to mix the three together. When the Cortex Prime's consciousness entered the originally normal human body, it was unavoidable that some special changes would occur. The arms became thinner, and the elbow joints grew barbs like the limbs of insects. The Cortex Prime wore a strange armor made of keratin, and a pair of large bone wings extended from the back. The hair seemed to have a life of its own, dancing in the wind. The powerful telekinesis was completely restrained. Dark green lines covered the corners of the eyes, and the purple eyes slowly opened, flashing with an evil light. It looks pretty good. As an intelligent being, you should have a name. The sharp insectoid mastermind is a thing of the past, Kerrigan. This is your new name. Thea swore to the heavens that Kerrigan had grown up naturally and had nothing to do with her. Since they looked so similar, she probably wouldn't mind if she stole the Queen of Blade's name. The former mainframe, the current Kerrigan, stood up and stretched her limbs. It had been so long since she had last moved her body that she had forgotten how many years ago it had been. His thoughts became even more active. The accumulated psychokinesis of several generations of the mainframe was now like a small bug under his control. She was relaxed and happy. She now had emotions. She was no longer a link in the chain of insectoid war machines but an independent individual. She found it hard to control her emotions and wanted to roar. Hey, subdue your people first. Without the insectoids, you're useless to me, Thea said coldly. Kerrigan was shocked. Only then did she realize that the insectoids had gone out of control. She also knew where her value lay. She hurriedly used the insectoid's special waveband to gain control of her subordinates. The Lord level, Commander level, elite troops, main troops, and miscellaneous troops were all under control. After a day of chaos, the sharp insectoids were once again under her control. As for how many insectoids had died in the day, she didn't care. Thea didn't care either. Without needing Thea's orders, she began to gather the insectoids scattered across 2 sectors and over 100 planets back to the mother planet. In the process, her psychic power was damaged. She needed to re-establish her control system. Send out your scouting troops. I want to know the movements of the Green Lantern Corps on the main planet of OUA. Also, don't let Zamalon off. Also, have your subordinates multiply. I want an army that can cover the entire universe. Thea was very confident in the insectoid scouting troops' reproductive abilities. However, in Kerrigan's ears, these words had a different meaning. Oh? Boss wants to attack the main planet of OUA and Zamalon? How cool. As for the multiplication, it was naturally to prepare for the invasion of the Green Lantern Corps. Kerrigan thought she understood Boss's intentions and began to give orders to her subordinates. With the sharp insectoids retreating, the crisis of the Blue Lantern Corps was resolved. From the results, it was indeed as the Saint's mantra said, everything will be fine. Thea returned to the main planet of the Blue Lantern Corps. She didn't say much to the Saint, who was waiting optimistically. She only said that her scouting results showed that the insectoids were retreating rapidly. Then, she ordered the Yellow and Green Lantern Corps to return to their stations. She didn't follow the main group. Instead, she flew alone in another direction of the universe. The universe sector was awesome. That's right, this place was awesome. Just like how she scolded Jon Stewart in the main alliance, this was the sector where the Green Lantern Corps' predecessor, the Space Hunter, massacred. The intelligent life in the entire sector was massacred until only 5 people survived. One of them was the leader of the Red Lantern Corps. Thea wasn't here to mourn the dead today. The dead had been dead for countless years and weren't worth her time. No matter what happened in the future, the night was coming. She wanted to see it for herself. She only remembered that the future dark night originated from here. As for which planet it originated from, she would have to find it carefully. The Guardians had completely erased the records of this area. Thea couldn't find any relevant written records. The entire sector was like an indescribable piece of trash, casually thrown into a trash bin. No one remembered what happened here, and no one came here again. Facts became stories, and stories became legends. The souls here wandered endlessly. Some were destroyed, while others were still immersed in the moment before they were killed. Their resentment was accelerating the birth of something. Walking on the surface of the planet, this place was far away from the stars. The sky and the land were pitch black. Faint red lightning flashed in the atmosphere. Hurricanes passed by the ground from time to time, accompanied by a thick smell of blood. Even after countless years, the smell didn't fade at all. Innumerable corpses were piled up on the road. The deathly aura that seemed to have materialized reduced the flesh and blood here to nothingness, but the corpses of intelligent life remained. They seemed to be roaring at the sky, at the universe. They couldn't accept it. They couldn't understand why they had to suffer this. Chapter 807. A Peaceful Death? Thea used her heart to experience the mysterious realm. Walking on a barren planet, the mood here was not what she wanted. This kind of death was very high-end, and the concept of death had been deduced to the extreme. However, Thea did not like it. This kind of death was not what she wanted. She even felt that it did not explain the true meaning of death. She walked past 12 planets in a row, but the trip on a whim was fruitless. If she remembered correctly, the red light core was also in this area. They were a group of lunatics who were completely unreasonable. She was ready to go home. She had just opened a portal when she saw an orange light coming at her from a tricky angle. She reached out and slapped the orange light away. Immediately after, 7 or 8 light beams came flying at her. There were flames, sharp blades, and gas. Without exception, they were all orange. Thea released the aura of a god, shattering the various attacks. Only then did she look back. She saw a tall, thin alien with dry skin and an orange light all over his body squatting at the top of the mountain. 2 dim eyes were staring at her without blinking. The strange alien had the head of a wolf dog. His face was very long, and other than the teeth in his jaw, there were 3 sharp teeth on each side of his mouth. His body was stooped like a large kobold. Thea saw that he was holding a very European-style rechargeable lantern in his hand and asked tentatively, "Orange lantern? You're that guy called Laphis?" The dog-headed alien screamed sharply, "I'm Laflez, the greatest Laflez. Wealth, you have a lot of wealth on you. This is Laflez, and only Laflez." The alien looked at Thea as if he was looking at a moving pile of gold. The greed in his eyes could be seen even by an ordinary person. Thea was too lazy to think about whether the other party was here to ambush her or just happened to pass by. She flew into the air and asked condescendingly, "Do you know how to write the word, death?" It was a very imposing sentence, but Laflez unexpectedly thought about it and said, "I can't read. I don't know how to write." His answer almost made Thea laugh. This was a lucky idiot, an idiot who accidentally obtained an orange lamp ring. Treasures, countless treasures. They're all mine. They're all Lafley's. The dog-headed man was lost in his own dreams as he spoke incoherently. After a while, he looked at Thea and raised the ring on his right hand. "Hand over your treasure." Endless energy gushed out from his ring, and the images of the aliens were summoned by his lamp ring. These aliens were once enemies of the orange lamp, but they were all defeated without exception. The greedy orange lamp even stole their identities and made them fight for the orange lamp like the ghosts of the lamp ring. If it weren't for Lafley's low IQ, the damage he could cause wouldn't be inferior to Black Lamp. Interesting. Thea whistled, and the sound pierced through the air, fiercely entangling the enemy at the front. This enemy was like a big bug, with 3 densely packed mouths on its abdomen. The sound turned into a white line that tightened around the big bug and quickly exerted force on both sides, a perfect strangulation. "Go, go! Take my treasures." Laflez, who was at the back, didn't care about this level of consumption at all. His ring seemed to contain infinite energy, and wave after wave of monsters were released. The sky and the earth were completely covered, leaving no gaps. All that could be seen was orange light. Thea couldn't help but be moved. She always knew that the orange lamp was difficult to deal with, but she didn't expect this guy to have the posture of an army by himself. If the energy of an ordinary lamp ring was 100%, and the blue lamp was present, it could exert about 150% of the energy, Then the orange lamp ring's upper limit was 100,000%. The orange lamp's greedy nature made it impossible for him to share and make a new ring. All the emotional energy gathered together, and this made Laflez unprecedentedly powerful. One person was an army. Lowly life. It's blasphemy for you to live for one more second. Thea used magic to condense a silver fire scimitar in each of her hands, and threw it at Laflez, who was hiding in the protection of the conjured creatures. The two scimitars flashed with a dazzling light, and spun at high speed like two lightning bolts. All the conjured creatures along the way were defeated in one hit, and some could resist for a little bit. After killing 11 monsters in a row, the silver fire on the scimitars was exhausted, and they turned into nothingness. Laflez, who was greedy by nature, was shocked. He hurriedly hid behind a monster with a big head whose chin was full of tentacles. "You have such great power, but you don't know how to use it. What a shame. This ring should be mine." Damn it, am I affected too? Thea felt that something was wrong halfway through her words. Her realm was right there, and greed had little effect on her. Her mental strength was strong, and she quickly came to her senses. While she was distracted for a moment, Laflez pulled out a bunch of conjured creatures. The Guardians were afraid of his power, and in order to appease him, they gave him the Vega Galaxy, including the main planet, Okero, on the condition that both sides would not invade each other. For a time, many criminals in the universe entered the Vega Galaxy to escape the pursuit of the green lights. They thought that they were safe, but in the end, they even became part of the orange lamp. This monster with a huge head full of tentacles blocked Thea's view like a big tadpole. This was Laflez's biggest trump card. He killed a new god and made the new god into a spirit of the lamp ring for him to use. God knows which universe this guy came from. Thea looked at its characteristics. If she was not wrong, this was the god of hunger. Although it looked terrible, she felt that if Darkseid saw it, he would not let it go. Unfortunately, the source was already exhausted. It was just a shell, but it did not have much of the corresponding power left. This god of hunger was just a toy whose body was controlled by the lamp ring. Thea pulled out her holy sword. She wanted to completely purify these monsters. Her anger, which was only a small success, was now stimulated by greed, and suddenly increased by a lot. Thea's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She wanted to cut off Laflez's head. The lucky ones should act like the lucky ones. They should be afraid and polite, and not bark at the strong all day long. Laflez, who was a little slow, continued to increase the number of troops. He thought that he could kill Thea with numbers. If 10 were not enough, then 100. If 100 were not enough, then 1,000. In fact, he had been doing this for so many years. He occupied an entire galaxy, and there were countless criminals for the lamp ring to devour. Unlike Hal Jordan, who focused on technique and reasonable energy distribution, the lamp ring had 100,000% of the energy for him to squander. Chapter 808. Swoosh! A dazzling light flashed past. Laflez, who was trying his best to summon his troops, turned his head and looked over. He saw that one of his subordinates, who looked like a bison, was split into two halves. The lamp ring's instantiation recovered very quickly. Initially, he didn't care much about it, but this bison monster's body that was split into two started burning with raging flames. In less than 3 seconds, it was burned to ashes. No matter how much greed energy was injected, it couldn't be saved. "This sword! I want this sword! Get it for me quickly!" He didn't realize the danger at all and was still ordering his subordinates to get it. His instantiation was completely different from the instantiations of other lamp rings. It had life and consciousness, but it was also under the absolute control of the lamp ring. Many of the instantiations could more or less use some of their abilities when they were alive. In an instant, all kinds of energy, weapons, and cold weapons attacked Thea. Thea wasn't afraid at all. She hadn't used the holy sword for a while. Most of the enemies could be dealt with without the holy sword, but a small number of enemies couldn't be defeated with the holy sword. Even though she was surrounded, she still heard the other party's unique voice. It was sharp and harsh, revealing endless possessiveness. "This bastard has his eyes on my holy sword? The young mistress' anger had broken through the limits of reason. She had never been so angry before. Today, she felt as if a ball of fire had ignited in her heart. If she didn't kill to her heart's content, she wouldn't be able to vent the anger in her heart. The monsters that looked like meatworms were split into two halves from head to toe. The monsters with eyeballs directly reached out and pulled out their eyeballs. Those with more tongues had their tongues cut off, and those with more limbs cut off their limbs. The violent and high temperature accompanied the lamp ring spirits that were turned into ashes. Countless enemies fell under the sword. She followed her heart. Her sword was unstoppable. No monster could resist her anger. Unfortunately, the instantiations of the lamp ring were all illusions. Fighting bloody battles among the enemies didn't vent much of her anger. Instead, she became angrier. The holy sword was blood-red. Soon, she killed her way through the 3 layers of encirclement. The desert-like planet was plowed by the aftershock of the sword energy. Countless rocks were smashed into powder. After that, they were swept into the cyclone again. The planet that was already full of holes became even more dilapidated. "You bastard! I'm going to chop off your dog head today." At this time, Thea's entire body was filled with killing intent. The number of lantern ring spirits that had died under her sword was at least 800, if not 1,000. With her powerful strength and the irresistible holy sword, there was no enemy that could withstand a single attack from her. She didn't take a detour, and with the holy sword in her hand, she went straight for Laflas. In her eyes, Laflas saw a kind of contempt on the level of life. After obtaining the lamp ring, he felt fear for the first time. Had he made a mistake? Should I run away now? However, the spiritual light of Thea's wealth deity position shone like the sun in his spiritual world. It was fine if he didn't see it or didn't know about it, but now that he saw it, he felt that if he let it go, he would have to live in pain and suffering every day in the future. Greed quickly suppressed reason. Laflas gritted his teeth. "Let's do it." He commanded a bunch of materializations to protect himself. Then, he sent out his most powerful subordinate, the god of hunger. "Where do you think you're going?" Thea passed the sword to her left hand and pointed her right hand in the direction where Laflas was hiding. She mobilized her divine power and used a large-scale soul shock. Invisible and colorless ripples rushed up like a tide. The lantern ring spirits were all controlled by the lantern ring spirits and were immune to all soul attacks. However, Laflas couldn't. He was still a living individual. Facing a direct soul attack, he, who wasn't a strong man to begin with, was sent flying more than 10 meters. The soul shock made his mind go blank, and he vomited blood in the air. "I'll take your head." Thea stepped on the head of a materialized monster and flew up. She wanted to cut off the dog's head to vent her anger. Hiss! A huge suction force slowed her forward momentum instantly. When she stabilized her body, the big-headed god of hunger had already flown to her side. The 10-meter-wide mouth opened to the maximum, and the irresistible suction force made Thea stop and counterattack. With this delay, Laflas' subordinates had already surrounded her, and 7 or 8 types of energy shields were set up just to prevent her strange soul attack. "Ha! A bunch of ants. It was the guardians of OUA who told you about my whereabouts, you bastards." Thea wasn't surprised. The guardians had lived for hundreds of millions of years, and it wasn't strange for them to have some detection devices in their hands. Provoking the orange lamp to fight with her didn't cause them any losses at all. "Consider yourself unlucky. No one can save you today." Anger rolled in her heart, and Thea's green eyes seemed to contain a ball of fire. 2 rays of light flew towards Laflas. The green rays were mixed with a little red anger, and the light was a little more gorgeous than before. It bypassed the materialized ghosts that wanted to block the attack, and the target was still straight at Laflas. Ah! Laflas was really scared this time. On a planet like Okaro, where criminals ran rampant, he grew from a cautious little monster to the present day, and his premonition of danger was very sensitive. He had escaped from death many times by relying on his premonition, and the early warning in his heart saved him countless times in the beginning, but it had never been as dangerous as it was now. He let out an unknown shout, turned around, and ran. But how could it be possible? Being able to run away with extreme speed didn't mean that he could run away too. In less than 2 seconds, the ray had already reached his back. As long as it hit, no one but God could save him. Thea was still very confident about this. Just as Thea was waiting to see the enemy turn into ashes, she saw the god of hunger suddenly charge out diagonally and block the ray. The ray wanted to go around from the side, but the god of hunger opened his mouth that could swallow everything to the maximum. The pair of lifeless eyes seemed to be injected with some kind of vitality, and the enormous suction force even caused the orbit of the planet to deviate. Gravel, soil, bones, and countless other things were sucked in. Under the effect of the suction force, the ray's angle was visibly deflected, and finally hit the mouth of the god of hunger. The ray disappeared into the big mouth, and the god of hunger seemed to have obtained a rare satisfaction and relief. The big mouth slowly cracked from the center to the surroundings, and the cracks became bigger and bigger, and finally turned into a pile of dust. Ouch! Thea felt that her head was stuffed with an iron rod, and her vision turned black. On the other hand, the god of hunger, a new god who didn't leave his name in the original time and space, was completely obliterated by her. Unlike the group of vengeful goddesses under the benevolent grandmother, those were all false gods, existences without origins, and were gods who relied on various means to force themselves to become stronger. The god of hunger was now an empty shell, but he used to be a real new god. Obliterating him was a big burden on Thea. Fortunately, there was a fundamental difference between the two. Thea slowly rubbed her forehead, and her beautiful eyebrows wrinkled into a ball. She forcibly controlled her boiling spiritual power, smoothing it out little by little and suppressing the discomfort. Chapter 809. Accidentally killing the god of hunger gave her a splitting headache and made her grimace in pain. However, after she killed a new god, her understanding of her own rays had improved greatly. Many of the questions she had when she studied the Omega rays had been answered. Another benefit was that she calmed down again. The nameless anger subsided, and her rationality returned to her body. She looked at the galaxy with lingering fear. Death was peaceful, she was right about that. However, the souls of the dead were not peaceful. They were screaming silently. They were unwilling and angry. Thea, who was connected to the spiritual world at all times, was unconsciously affected. The Rainbow Bandit's rage was nothing compared to the rage of all the creatures in the sector. Fortunately, the rage had finally reached a point where it could be controlled freely after going through so many ups and downs. Ha! Where do you think you're going, you bastard? She took 2 deep breaths. Seeing that Laughlies was about to turn around and run, she endured the headache and sent another soul shock. Laughlies, who had no defense, was sent flying again. This time he could not even stand up. The exhaustion of his spiritual power caused many of his manifestations to turn into smoke and dissipate in the air. The orange light did not materialize, and the earth returned to darkness. Laughlies could feel the murderous intent not far behind him. He had not given up on escaping. He was mumbling something that no one could understand. His hands grabbed the ground and his legs weakly. He was covered in blood and tried to crawl away. Even if he could only delay for 1 more second, he wanted to hide as far away as possible. There were no more manifestations to save him. Thea took 2 breaths and looked at Laughlies, who was injured by her. She pointed the holy sword at his ugly head. "Don't you want my holy sword? Come and get it. All the wealth is Laughlies? That's what you said before. If you dare to extend your filthy claws to the goddess of wealth, this day next year will be yours." A message entered her spiritual world. She, who had regained her rationality, heard a call from the distant earth. It was an emergency call gem that only a few of her family members had. Which one of her family members was in trouble? Thea's mind was filled with various thoughts. At her current level, divination was not difficult. The other party was generous and did not hide anything. She quickly figured out the various relationships and causes. She pondered for a few seconds, then sneered and pointed at Laughlies. "You dog, with your narrow vision. I'm afraid you never thought that a supreme existence would use such a method to make me spare your life. Consider yourself lucky. If you dare to appear in front of me again, I'll chop off your dog head. Humph. Thea was very unhappy. She didn't even look at Laughless. She turned around and stepped out, teleporting to the distant Earth. Not to mention the orange lamp controller who was scared silly. Thea continuously teleported several times and arrived in front of Salisbury Stonehenge in Wiltshire, England. The sky was clear and cloudless, and the whole world was filled with peace and stability. At the end of the line of sight, there were a few young people playing soccer. Stonehenge was a world-class tourist attraction. Many people took photos and played here. However, contrary to the harmonious melody of the whole world, this place was not harmonious. Ordinary people did not feel it. They did not know that in the interlayer space of the real world, a tall man in a blue trench coat and a top hat was standing in the center, and a petite girl in a dark black robe was continuously retreating. Raven, stand behind me. Thea slightly shook her shoulders and squeezed into the space. She waved her hand and released a magic barrier, wanting to stop the man in the top hat. However, as soon as the magic was released, she realized that the magic here was abnormal. It was like a completely different magic law. She hurriedly used her divine power to block the enemy. When the big loli saw her appear, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She hurriedly ran to her side and coldly looked at the man in the top hat. Sister, be careful. This guy tricked me to come here. There must be a conspiracy. The magic reaction here is so messy. Is it connected to hell? Thea slightly sensed and asked with uncertainty. Yes, this is the place where he was summoned. Raven's eyes were filled with pain. The he she was talking about was the three-palace demon clone that was sealed back then. Could also be said that he was her father. Oh, if that's the case, Phantom Stranger, if I didn't see wrongly, you wanted to hand Raven over to her father in hell? Since when did you work for hell? The stranger was expressionless. He passed through the barrier as if it was nothing. This move made Thea's eyes narrow. This guy's strength was indeed impressive. New God. I have nothing to do with hell. It was the great existence that asked me to do this. You should move aside. In front of the great power, you are just an ant. Behind the phantom stranger was God. Sia wouldn't dare to talk to him about this even if she had nothing better to do. So what if she was an ant? At least she knew her place. She also vaguely understood the Supreme's thoughts. Being called an ant, she was not angry because even if he was a watcher, the Heavenly Father was also an ant in her eyes. Through the Laughless incident, she understood the cause and effect. There were coincidences, but it should not happen to them or those of a higher level. She felt that she could roughly guess the Supreme's thoughts. He wanted to watch the show, the various conflicts of interest, and the bonds between people. Otherwise, he would be so bored as to create the world and create humans. He would have the time to sleep, all right? Thea avoided talking about the great power because there was nothing to talk about. She avoided the main topic and prepared to talk to the stranger about himself. You know that I am the goddess of wealth, right? Looking at your expression, you should know. But do you know that the 30 silver coins hanging around your neck are also under my jurisdiction? Although it is covered by your cloak, the smell of wealth is not hidden at all, right? The sinner who betrayed Jesus for 30 silver coins. Judas? That was your name in the past, right? Thea was not lying. She did feel the smell of wealth. It was very little, but this money was related to God. According to the East, it was karma, and the biggest kind of karma. The spear of Longinus turned from an ordinary spear into a holy spear. Although it was an extremely despicable and ugly crime, the 30 silver coins were equivalent to Jesus' life. It was also worthy of being called a holy weapon. Thea stole a few more glances and felt that it was a pity. The stranger had a super big boss by his side. No matter how she thought about it, it was useless. She could not snatch it directly, but it was not a problem to stop him in the middle. As long as she did not cross the line and did not interfere, the big boss would just watch the show happily. The big boss was like Buddha, the stranger was like the monk who traveled to the west, and she was like a troublemaker on the road. Thea thought about it and felt that there was nothing wrong with it. There was still a lot of room for manipulation. Chapter 8:10. I used to be Judas. Countless people know this. There's no need to hide it. My mission today is to send her in. The stranger still had a poker face as he pointed at Raven. Thea couldn't tell him that the big shot created a conflict here because she wanted to kill Lawfleets. She pulled Raven and was about to teleport. As long as they left this place, the stranger wouldn't chase after them. He followed the principle of secrecy and couldn't fight with Thea on the streets of New York. A colorless and transparent ripple blocked the two. Keep her here. This is the order of the Supreme. Thea directly broke through the obstruction with brute force and took another step forward. It's fate that she stays here. After a short delay, the stranger was already standing in front of them. Raven was furious. She wanted to resist, but the flow of magic here was very strange. She couldn't mobilize her magic power at all. Fate? It's a tragedy that you're still alive. Thea's expression was very serious. She never thought that she could beat the stranger who had God as his backer. Even if he was just a toy of God, she couldn't beat him, but she wasn't powerless. Thea's body surged with several colors. Green, blue, red, yellow, up, down, left, right, front, and back, surrounding the stranger. A sinner who is drowning in pain. How dare you stand in front of me? The feeling of pity was like a sharp all-piercing into the stranger's heart. Was there hope? He hoped that he could atone for his sins. At least that was what the Supreme said. Was there fear? He was afraid that all this was an illusion of his imagination. Was there anger? He hated himself. He hated this fate. Thea not only mobilized the emotional spectrum to attack him, but also used her wealth to trigger a trace of power in the 30 silver coins. Ah! The stranger's eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. Fear returned to his face. He only felt that his breathing was heavy and his hands and feet were suspended in the air. He grabbed his neck with both hands and realized that the 30 silver coins were like a noose, hanging him firmly on a tree. He was wearing a linen robe and his skin was dark yellow. All kinds of powers had disappeared. He was back to the moment before he was ready to end his life. Hee. His throat was choked by the coin noose, but he couldn't die. He couldn't go up and he couldn't go down. He could only maintain an awkward look as he hung in the air. Just as he was anxiously trying to come up with a solution, he realized that many ordinary people had gathered around him. They were a group of barefoot farmers dressed in coarse clothing. Some of them looked familiar to him. The crowd pointed at him one after another. Some felt pity for him, some felt disdain for him, and some felt disgusted for him. They can see me? Wasn't this an illusion? At first, the stranger thought that it was an illusion. He had seen too many magic spells and didn't think much of it. However, the villagers' discussion made him completely confused. He wanted to explain himself, but he didn't know where to start. In this seemingly real and yet not real place, he was strangled to prevent him from speaking. The light red sunset slowly disappeared into the horizon. The villagers cursed for the whole afternoon and went home satisfied, leaving the poor people still hanging on the tree. The crowd gradually dispersed, and the graceful young lady finally revealed herself. You? How could the stranger not know that this was all her doing? Unfortunately, he couldn't get out of this situation. What about me? Did you feel bad when you heard the villagers' discussion? Did you really choose to hang yourself to atone for your sins? I'm afraid it was because of these words that everyone said you were guilty. You automatically thought that you were guilty and went to atone for your sins. You don't even know what your sins are. For 30 silver coins, you chose to betray yourself. For some rumors, you chose to end your life. Your fate was never in your own hands. You are like duckweed in the river, floating from one side to the other. It's ridiculous that you are still thinking about atoning for your sins. What sins did Raven have? You want to push her back to the side of the 3 palaces. A kind and righteous soul has been abandoned by you again. Is this how you atone for your sins? Tell me loudly. Thea got angrier as she spoke. Damn it! Are you retarded? The stranger felt the noose around his neck loosen, but he was speechless. You! Thea wanted to continue, but she found herself back in front of the giant stone array. The stranger was still standing in front of her, and Raven was holding her hand with a nervous expression. Everything around them had lost its original color. Their surroundings were neither black nor white. Instead, there were colors that Sia could not name. In this bizarre world, there was a dirty schnauzer standing there, looking at the three of them curiously. "You have finally appeared. This is the biggest boss I have ever seen." Thea almost jumped up, but she hid her emotions well. Confusion, fear, and a little confusion. Previously, when the silver coins didn't reject her use, Thea knew that God, or rather, God Smuff, was happy to see her succeed. He didn't object to her playing the stranger, and he even had the intention of sharing his experience with her. It was impossible for her to bow down to him. After all, she was an actor in this movie, and Raven was at most an extra. They didn't have the right to talk nonsense with the director. It was better to just watch the show. The young lady chose to observe with some uneasiness. "Who is this? Or what?" The big lowly Raven was a little confused. The little dog on the ground looked ordinary, but when she felt it carefully, she felt like she was facing the entire universe. This kind of vast and ethereal feeling was something that even the three palaces of demons couldn't compare to. Thea pulled her back, indicating that she should be on guard and not speak. The boss didn't even look at them. He turned to the stranger and said, "I'm afraid you still don't understand. The world doesn't need you to save it. The one you need to save is yourself." The stranger returned to his poker face. He pulled open his cape, revealing the 30 silver coins hanging around his neck. "You said that as long as these silver coins are all removed, my redemption will be complete?" He wanted to say, "Why didn't you keep your words?" But he didn't dare. The boss looked at the three silently, making Thea's hair stand on end. "Your journey has just begun. I'm looking forward to the next part." The Scherzuna in front of them suddenly became tall and big. Thea stared at him without blinking. His every movement seemed to contain countless truths. In an instant, it was as if she saw the alternation of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the replacement of races and civilizations. Not knowing how long had passed, Thea suddenly realized that the stranger had turned around and left without a trace. When she regained her senses, she found that she was in a vast wilderness. The sky was dark, the ground was red, and there was a strong smell of sulfur in the air. It made her sneeze twice. Not far away, there were countless souls wandering around. Chapter 8:11. "Welcome to hell, new god." The stranger's tone was unfriendly. She was probably still brooding over the previous illusion. Thea didn't need her to remind her. Hell was on the same level as the new creation star and the apocalypse star. They were all higher than the parallel universe she was in before. She noticed it immediately. "Trust me, I'll definitely find a way home." Raven was trembling from the aura here. Thea patted her shoulder. "I'll first seal the characteristics of your magic power. Bear with it." With that, she drew a magic circle on each of Raven's limbs. The evil magic power unique to the three-palace demon was finally retracted. Raven now looked like an ordinary girl who knew some magic. However, time was short, and there were many problems with her seals. She might be able to hide the characteristics of her magic power, but she couldn't hide her bloodline. They could only pray that this place was far away from the three-palace demon's main body. You should be more concerned about yourself. Your divine power is as dazzling as a torch. You're not welcome here." The stranger continued to speak coldly. Thea rolled her eyes. "Nonsense, do you think I don't know this?" She had already tried. The mother box was directly blocked. She couldn't use the teleportation spell because of the different rules. As for the lantern ring, it was even worse. Her several escape methods were all blocked by the schnauzer. "Sorry. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." She rummaged through her wealth space and finally took out a long robe. This was a semi-divine tool. It was a grayish-white tattered robe with the characteristics of absorbing souls. It was originally an inconspicuous equipment in Hades' treasury. Thea didn't pay much attention to it when she got it. Now it was of great use. She draped the robe over her body, and many of the dead souls wandering outside the gates of hell pounced on her as if they had seen a delicacy. With the help of the many dead souls and the support of his soul divine position, she was now filled with a gloomy aura, a proper necromancer. You! The stranger was so shocked that he was speechless when he saw that she had transformed into a living person. Thea's beautiful nose snorted. She looked at the stranger. Are you dumbfounded? I don't need too many aliases. In order to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations, these were all prepared in advance. Can we follow the original route? Raven asked Sia in a low voice. She was referring to the path in Nanderbat that Sia had created when she sealed the 3 palaces. Do you know the terrain around here? How far is it from your original activity area? Thea was a little excited. If she could find her old way back, it would be a lot easier. The big loli was a little embarrassed. She looked around for a while and shook her head, indicating that she didn't know where she was. The vastness of hell surpasses your imagination. Just wait for the supreme trial. Believe me, this is the only way out. Moku stood perfectly straight. It could be seen that this was not the first time he had been thrown into an indescribable space. Thea was not going to be polite to him since she was left in this broken place. She pointed at the stranger's nose and said, "Sinner, do you know the biggest difference between you and me? I will fight to the end and not wait for others to help me." Wasn't it just hell? If she was immortal, she wouldn't have been able to do it. However, with her current strength and various memories, she was confident that she could find a way out by herself. In the ring-shaped god's domain, there were a total of 8 areas. They were Dream World, Heaven, New Creation Star, Heavenly Realm, Nightmare, Hell, Apocalypse Star, and Underworld. Hell had 2 neighbors. One was Apocalypse Star and the other was Nightmare. If she reached Apocalypse Star and Nightmare, it would be very troublesome. However, Hell was different. Thanks to the various ways of humans, all kinds of teleportation formations and one-way teleportation gates were set up in Hell. She only needed to find a nearby demon lord to borrow the way home. After all, the demon lord only sealed her means and couldn't seal the entire Hell. Moku chose to ignore her Chinibu declaration. In his opinion, any struggle was meaningless. He had realized this 2,000 years ago. Thea didn't waste any time and pulled Raven in. The demonic aura here wasn't very strong. At most, it was the periphery of Hell. Countless wandering souls had mistakenly entered this place instead of Underworld because of their evil deeds in life. The cruel environment made them lose their consciousness and only had their instincts left. They wandered around the wilderness with endless resentment. When the resentment reached a certain level, the wandering souls would be mixed with the special aura of Hell and become little demons. They would fight, kill, and devour until they became a big demon. This was an iron law that had been formed for hundreds of millions of years. There were too many big demons in Hell. Even Darkseid would have to shrink his head and behave himself here, let alone a small shrimp like her. Unlike Diana, who shone brightly, she had many neutral deity positions and didn't increase her combat strength by much. However, in this environment, she could survive in Hell with a little disguise. No one would think that she was a righteous friend if they saw her covered in ghosts, and Zhou Yuhun didn't even dare to approach her. Raven had a residence in Hell and didn't need to disguise herself. The 2 beauties, one big and one small, walked straight ahead. At first, Moku watched with a cold smile. However, after waiting for a long time, he didn't notice anything unusual. He didn't know why God had thrown him here. He thought for a while and hurriedly followed Thea. However, Thea had the deity position of soul. The wandering souls would die if they touched her. No matter how low their intelligence was, they wouldn't dare to provoke her. Moku didn't. He betrayed Jesus. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was the number 1 sinner in this world. Many wandering souls smelled the scent on him. It smelled delicious. Countless wandering souls rushed towards him. Moku wanted to cry but had no tears. He could only put up a defensive barrier and resist. Hey, can you be a little quieter? Are you brainless? Don't you know that you have to keep a low profile? Moku chose to remain silent. He wasn't an idiot. How could he not know how to keep a low profile? He was here to complete God's mission, not to challenge others. Being so arrogant at the gates of Hell would attract the attention of the big shots. The only outcome was death. Seeing how pitiful you are, I'll be magnanimous and help you. Thea gave Moku a strand of soul power. It was impossible for him to disguise himself, but it wasn't a problem for him to intimidate some wandering souls. The environment at the periphery of hell was harsh. Flying demons patrolled the sky from time to time. The two beauties didn't know the situation nearby and didn't dare to fly. After walking in the wilderness for more than 3 hours, they vaguely saw the outline of a small town. "Hey, stop right there." Thea stopped a demon who was passing by. Previously, there were a few demons who were hunting and collecting supplies. They saw her undead aura from afar and chose to take a detour without exception. Now, the demon she stopped seemed to be doing better than the previous ones. This was because he was wearing a half-body leather armor and was riding a hell warhorse with fiery eyes. Chapter 8:12. Thea's body was surrounded by spiritual light transformed from wandering souls, scaring the demon. Hell wasn't far from the underworld, so it was normal for a few necromancers to come here. "Tell me, who's the lord nearby?" Thea didn't ask for directions directly. In her opinion, most demon lords had a direct route to Earth. She just needed to pick a less powerful one. It's Lord Nibiros," the demon said, trembling. This demon was 7 meters tall, had red skin, no wings, and no spell-like abilities. In short, he was weak, but he could ride a horse in hell, so he was at least at the level of an elite. Thea looked at him a few times, but there was nothing special about him. He was just a little stronger than an ordinary person. He could tell from the soldiers that this Nebaroth was not much stronger than the leader. She remembered that the demon fighting the Blue Devil was called Nibiros. This stupid name was awkward and tongue-twisting, so Thea wasn't sure. "From now on, you're my servant." The demon was a little dissatisfied, but Thea threw him a piece of fine gold the size of a fingernail. His dissatisfaction immediately turned into joy, and he hurriedly nodded in agreement. As a servant, he couldn't ride a horse, so he let his master walk. The demon named Tuss handed over the horse, and Thea started riding with Raven in her arms. As for Mr. Phantom Stranger, you can continue with the 11th route. After accepting a servant, Thea asked about the current situation in Hell. Tuss didn't know how the great demons fought with each other, but Hell was severely lacking in basic resources. He kept complaining, and it was shown to Thea. The lack of resources was to the point of being severely lacking. Thea was also stunned. How did this happen? It can't be that God knows I'm rich, so he sent me to Hell to help the economy and stimulate domestic demand, right? She originally wanted to find a portal and leave, but Hell's current situation made her think deeply. She had money. This money included all the daily necessities, minerals, weapons, and precious equipment. The Zergs of Kerrigan didn't produce, and they piled the resources of 2 sectors on the main planet. The insectoids only needed to reproduce, and their need for resources was the lowest in the entire universe. All the assets would be shared, and the consumption would be minimal. There would be no such thing as 6% of the population consuming 50% of the resources. After tens of millions of years, they had plundered hundreds of planets, and their accumulation was a terrifying number. To show his sincerity, Kerrigan handed over 70% of his race's wealth. Now, Thea's inventory space was filled to the brim. It was almost full. The amount of refined gold and mithril in her hands could be measured in thousands of tons. It was simply too much. As if to prove her conjecture, money paved the way for her. She had already recruited more than 300 demons and 12 hell steeds when she arrived at a small town. Although the old Phantom Stranger said that he wasn't willing, his body honestly took over the reins. A few pieces of metal and a few sharp Zerg claws were all that was needed for the deal. Of course, her act of flaunting her wealth and showing off her wealth also attracted a lot of malice. However, she had extracted the souls of all the attackers and turned them into zombies. Now they were following behind the army mechanically. Tuz symbolically threw 2 coins, and the group entered the town. Paying the entrance tax meant that they acknowledged the rule of the local lord. They could enter the market and do some repair work. If they didn't pay, they could continue to wander in the wilderness. Along the way, there were quite a few groups like them. There was order in the chaos. Thea defeated 2 waves of attacks in a row. The 2 leading demons were killed directly. With a little money, The opposing army became her army. The total number of people exceeded 1,000. The winner had everything. The demons naturally submitted to her, as if they had always been her subordinates. Following that, there were slaves. Slaves of intelligent life, slaves of humans. Men and women with stooped bodies, wrapped in rags, followed the demon soldiers with numb faces and walked to her side. You can't save them. They're already dead. The stranger was afraid that her righteous heart would explode, and she would kill them all. Thea felt that he was overthinking. How many good people were there among the humans who had fallen to hell? These people were greedy when they were alive and couldn't wait to sign a bunch of agreements. Naturally, they had to pay the price after death. This was in line with the rules of the trade. She changed the topic. Why are you still following me? Didn't your Supreme give you a mission? The stranger was depressed when this question was brought up. He didn't even receive a notification. He shook his head and didn't say anything. What's the name of the being you serve? Voice of heaven. I didn't serve him. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't judge him with the standards of your new gods. Thea chuckled. What's there to be proud of? If not for your boss being super fierce, I would have killed you long ago. That Nibiros lives in the castle in the northwest. I'm going to take him down and see if there's a way back. If you don't receive a mission notification, you can come and find me. Thea finished speaking and led the large group into a small castle. This was the base of the demons that had attacked her before. Now it was successfully taken over. Spears and armor were distributed. Regardless of the actual combat strength of the demons under Thea, they looked quite impressive from afar now that they were armed. The stranger was speechless. You came to hell to snatch territory, right? You didn't even say anything and directly started fighting for supremacy? He felt that he couldn't understand Thea at all. What exactly was she after? Puzzled, he waved goodbye to them. The stranger felt that the voice of heaven would only give him a hint after leaving this group of people. Leaving the young lady who was preparing to play the game of supremacy, the stranger and the master god had a tacit understanding. Just 5 minutes after leaving the large group, he heard a voice that was as vast as the sky. Find yourself and find your family. No, my family is innocent. You can't drag them into this. The stranger's expression changed drastically. It was as if the string in the deepest part of his heart had been touched. He roared at the sky agitatedly. Unfortunately, hell was still the same as before. The blood-red sky seemed to be announcing his tragic fate. They're innocent. They're ordinary people. They don't know my identity. I beg you to let them go. The stranger kept crying. The surroundings were silent. Time and space were still. He could see the malicious gazes of the demons around him. He could see Thea's large group entering the castle, but no one noticed him. He was thrown into the gap between time and space. Okay, I'll look for them. I'll go look for them now. After some time, the stranger calmed down. The surrounding time automatically returned to normal. He searched around like a madman. Not here. These people weren't. After passing through one demon city after another, he finally saw 3 familiar figures after an unknown period of time. Chapter 8:13. Ellie, Tim, Elena. I'm here to save you. After wandering around hell for so many days without Sia's help, Stranger's physical strength and magic power had long been overdrawn by killing demons all day long. Now, a surge of power came out of nowhere, allowing him to send the demon guard flying with a single punch. Only the 3 figures remained in his vision. They were his family in the modern world, or rather, the family he had formed in the past 20 years. He loved his wife and his 2 children, but he never thought that he would drag them into hell. An ordinary woman with 2 ordinary children. They were not Thea, who could fight Darkseid for half an hour. They did not have the wealth of 2 sectors, nor did they have the ability to survive in hell. Time flowed differently, and Stranger did not know how long they had wandered in hell. Heartbroken, Stranger found his wife with her back facing him, lowering her head and gnawing on rotten meat. The light in his 2 children's eyes had long disappeared, and they were numbly following the group. I'm going to kill you all? Stranger raised his arm, wanting to kill these demons. He could not even use a 10,000th of God's power, but that little bit was enough for him to not fear any enemy. The scene of demon corpses littering the ground did not appear. Before he could vent his anger, he was stopped by a demon with a burning head. His unparalleled power was continuously absorbed by the other party. Stranger did not understand how this ordinary-looking demon could absorb supreme power. Stranger, are you surprised? I am you. Do you still recognize me? I'm afraid you have long forgotten me. You stole my name, my family, my originally happy family, my wife, my children. Everything in front of you was caused by you. The demon said with overflowing hatred. The stranger was shocked. Philip? The original Philip? The demon laughed cruelly. That's right, it's me. Look at what you have done. You stole my identity and lived with my family, while I fell into hell. Now, our family is reunited. The demon hugged the three pitiful people and laughed mockingly. Seeing that his beloved wife was only left with her instincts to survive, Stranger was so sad that he couldn't control himself. All the sins are mine. Let them go. The power of God seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and he turned back into the sinner in the blood field. His body was full of pain, and his courage, faith, and self-esteem had left him. He could only kneel on the ground and beg for forgiveness. The evil demon stepped on his head with a playful expression and let out an incomparably carefree laugh. Not enough, far from enough. This can't calm my anger. You know what? Those memories that made it hard for me to breathe, and the pain that drowned everything. I originally had a kind family, I had my own life, but you've ruined everything. The demon crushed the stranger's head with his foot. You have to pay the price. In their place, I am a sinner who has betrayed Jesus, the Son of God, the most wicked man in history. Let them go and lock me up. It is the only thing I can do for them. Please. Following Stranger's words, the devil pondered for a moment before nodding. Many sinners let out an unknown howl, and the wandering souls in the wilderness also let out mournful cries that reached straight to their souls. The entire hell seemed to be dizzy because of this. The world's greatest sinner had voluntarily entered hell. The will of hell seemed to be cheering, celebrating its great victory. The originally indestructible cape was snatched away by the little demons and was casually torn into a pile of rags. Stranger became Judas once again. This time, it wasn't Thea's illusion, but he voluntarily abandoned the identity bestowed upon him by the Supreme and became immortal again. They are yours. Hee, if you can walk out of hell alive, let's go. You are already my slave. Demon Philip didn't hold back as he lashed his whip on Stranger's hunched back. Becoming immortal again, he took a lash from the whip. Fresh blood instantly flowed from his shoulder to his back. But he didn't care. He carried his unconscious wife and children and staggered along with the group. The weight of the three people made it hard for him to breathe, but he felt that this was what he deserved. Along the way, he endured the ridicule, insults, and beatings of the demons. He wanted to complete this journey of atonement by himself. He didn't know how long he had walked or how far he had walked. His daily schedule was numb and mechanical. Time had lost its effect and his memories were a little blurry. The demons were also a little tired of his meekness and gradually stopped tormenting him. Instead, they found new toys. In order to help his wife and children regain their consciousness, he subconsciously gathered around some humans. The humans in the group changed frequently. Some escaped, some were killed. Everyone was in trouble and no one paid attention to his identity as Judas. Hey, big guy, why do you have so many chances? Why don't you run away? A woman who looked quite pretty asked him. Whaley wasn't here, so he didn't know what crime this woman had committed. However, looking at her frivolous expression and the way she hooked up with many humans, he knew that she wasn't a good person. At this moment, Stranger wasn't in the mood to care about other people's business. He answered woodenly, I'm atoning for my sins. The foxy woman didn't want to let him go. Looking at the patrolling demons, she whispered, I heard that a necromancer from the underworld is gathering troops to attack the demon lord. The conditions are frighteningly good. Let's run away together. You're so big. It'll be easy for you to perform meritorious deeds on the battlefield. After that, you can take the money and go home." Hearing that he was going home, Stranger's expression softened a little. He quickly shook his head. "I want to atone for my sins. I won't run away, I won't retreat." The foxy woman was a little strange. In the end, she softly said, "Idiot." Stranger didn't care about these external matters. He only heard that the foxy woman had brought a few human slaves and escaped in the night. No one knew where they went. This group of demons was like a chaotic hell. Some joined, some left. The only one who didn't change was the demon Philip, who had been tormenting Stranger. After all the demons lost interest in this number one sinner, only Philip didn't give up. It was ironic. "Continue walking, slaves." Philip was still unscrupulously whipping Stranger. Stranger maintained his old appearance, carrying his wife and children on his back and walking slowly. His shoes were already worn out. Now he could only walk barefoot on the scorching surface of hell. The small group of demons finally went their separate ways. The scale of the battle in this area escalated. The new necromancer wanted to take over this area and build a city of death. The original demon lord naturally didn't agree. Both sides had been in a tug-of-war for a long time. Most of the demons, except for Philip, were attracted to the battlefield. No matter how slow Stranger was, he knew that this remote corner of hell was in complete chaos. The originally peaceful life had been replaced by the flash of swords. That guy really knew how to cause trouble. Chapter 8:14. In the dead of the night, Stranger would think of Missy. His memory was already a little faint, as though she was a very distant figure. Her unyielding conviction would sometimes cause him to waver a little. Was his current choice correct? It should be correct. Thinking of the various tortures that Philip had inflicted on him, Stranger strengthened his conviction that all of this was a supreme test. However, this conviction of his was shaken the next day when Philip's throat was pierced by a bone arrow from afar. F***CK. How did this guy die? Stranger was shocked. In his mind, Philip must have been arranged by the Supreme. If he didn't suffer 81 tribulations, Philip would always be by his side tormenting him. Before that bone arrow pierced his throat, Stranger had always thought so. Looking at the demon's body twitching in a pool of blood, he wasn't very sure if this guy was a test given by God. Many skeleton soldiers rushed out from afar. The one leading them was an undead knight. Although it was made from the corpse of a demon, there were also a few demons with crude equipment on the other side. The moment the two sides met, they started fighting in full swing. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Stranger was still worried as he touched Philip. This demon that had tortured him for an unknown period of time was bleeding all over the ground. He was already dead. Stranger's heart turned cold. This guy didn't seem to be the target of his atonement. Then why was he tormented for a few months? Where's my cape? Where's my mighty power? How was it possible for him to find back the ability that he had discarded like a pair of worn-out shoes? The scale of the battle wasn't large. Stranger's life experience could be said to be rich. He hid far away from the battlefield. "Hey, give me back my ability. I beg you. I want to send my wife and children back." Stranger shouted towards the sky. Unfortunately, no one cared about him. It was as though he had never existed. If he could find someone to help, at least his wife and children could return to Earth. After eliminating all the demons, there was only one choice. He had to turn back and look for Thea. Regardless of whether it was to restore his wife and children's consciousness or to send them back to Earth, the help of the Soul Goddess was indispensable. However, to find someone in the vast hell was really difficult. Fortunately, Thea couldn't stay idle. Now that she was attacking the city, it was easy to find her. The stranger's luck was not bad, or perhaps it was better to say that God looked upon him with pleasure and did not make things difficult for him on this road. Carrying his wife and child on his back, Stranger finally arrived outside Thea's camp. There was an army of nearly 1,000,000 demons stationed here, as well as an equal number of undead. There was a huge bronze city at the end of the line of sight. Countless demons were fighting to the death. Occasionally, high-level demons would join the battlefield to stabilize the battle line and prevent the enemy from climbing the city walls. The city was brightly lit, and there was a huge stone pillar erected in the middle of the city. The light of magic flickered on it, emitting bursts of evil light. The attacking side also lit up the ghost lantern. The pale white light caused the movement of the undead, and the strength of their attacks increased by 10%. The stranger waited bitterly outside the camp for 3 days but still didn't manage to sneak in. "Are you really a god under the Heavenly Father?" Hiding behind a large rock, the stranger was very gloomy. Thea didn't dare to make a move as she was afraid of exposing her identity. Her strategy was to attack the city regardless of the losses. During the day, her demon army would attack fiercely, and at night, the undead would continue to fight. Day and night, the demons suffered heavy casualties. She wasn't afraid. She could recruit soldiers from further away. She could pull a large number of them with a wave of her hand, and the price she had to pay was almost negligible. There were corpses all over the ground, and with her attainments in magic, she could pull up thousands of undead with a wave of her hand. The morale of the defenders declined quickly. The stranger saw it with his own eyes. Demons who didn't know what loyalty was jumped off the city walls and ran to the attacking side to participate in the siege after receiving the bounty. The demon lord, Nibiros, had personally participated in the battle several times, and only then did he barely manage to repel the enemy. But as the difference in numbers between the enemy and their side increased, Nibiros went from fighting occasionally to fighting frequently, and even to the point of being a permanent resident. His destruction was only a matter of time. With a loud bang, the huge gate that weighed dozens of tons was broken by the siege chariot. The 2 broken pieces of the gate seemed to indicate the fall of the city as they fell to the sides. The green-skinned Nibiros was at a loss. He wanted to repel the enemies on the city walls, but he also wanted to block the gate. Unfortunately, there was a limit to what he could do in the face of the flood of enemies. He wasn't strong enough, and his territory was only a remote corner of hell. He didn't attract much attention at all. "I'm going to kill you." The green-skinned demon saw a black-robed figure floating in front of him. His claws were like sharp swords. He wanted to tear the enemy apart. "Idiot!" The person who came was naturally the young miss. Neither Raven nor she could use too much strength. Otherwise, she could take on 10 of these demons with one hand. She pointed a finger, and a large amount of magic power with a trace of soul divine power appeared. Like a drill, it spun at high speed and broke through the demon's mental world, blasting a hole in it. "From today onwards, you are a skeleton guard." The demon's flesh and blood quickly melted, turning into the spiritual fire necessary for undead creatures. The originally tall and sturdy bone armor let out crisp cracking sounds. Under the guidance of the soul, the former demon and current skeletal guard Nibiros slowly stood up. The rest of the battle had no suspense. The demon lord had turned into a ghost, so the remaining demons naturally wouldn't fight for him. When they heard that there was a reward, they all put down their weapons happily. All the demons stood together happily like a family. "Twos, gather the undead army. I want you to sweep the city from east to west. Kill all those who don't obey." Wearing full armor, with evil spirit in his eyes, and faintly surrounded by ghosts, this was the first subordinate Thea received in hell. At that time, he was also the one who told the young miss about the shortage of resources in hell. However, this guy was too weak. Even if he was given good equipment, he still died in a previous battle. The young miss was bored, so she pulled him up to continue fighting. She didn't expect him to have some talent as an undead knight. He gradually became one of her generals. Could only be said that the world was unpredictable. The remaining demons were very mixed. She found a few leaders and ordered them to divide their territories. She didn't care about the trivial matters. "Sister Thea, when are we going back?" The big lowly raven was bored. In the first few days, she was unbearably worried, afraid that the 3 demons would come to kill her. She slowly relaxed after a while. "Hee, we can't leave until we find that guy." At first, Thea only recruited a few servants to make herself more comfortable. Later, she slowly understood. She was just a background in this movie used to set off strangers' misery. The better she was, the more she hurt Stranger, and the happier that Supreme would be. Chapter 8:15. After carefully probing a few times, she realized that hell did not care about her taking over a piece of land, and God did not care either. Hence, she began to play this game happily. Raven was not an idiot. On the contrary, the black-bellied lowly was frighteningly smart. Seeing Thea's strange expression and the mention of him, she immediately understood half of it. It was that person's order to let you enter hell. No one can resist, so you have to come. No matter what, you have to do something in hell. Thea was careful with her words. Seeing that the big lowly seemed to understand, she immediately shut up. She could not say too much about this. In short, if the big boss told you to come, you had to come even if you didn't want to. After you come, you can do whatever you want. The big boss is only responsible for building the stage. After that, he will naturally move a stool to watch the show. Act according to his script. If he is happy, even if it is slightly different, it will be a surprise. Thea did not know if her guess was right. She seemed to have a plan, but in fact, every step she took was like walking on thin ice. Fortunately, she had tested it a few times. This script was very loose, and she had a lot of space to act freely. She completed the mission with trepidation. Unexpectedly, the will of hell was also very satisfied. It gave her a feeling of "you are very good." She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Slowly, the small fights became fierce attacks. Raven's eyes were twinkling. She went to look for Nibiru's collection. She put her right hand behind her head and rested her two long legs on the table. She was thinking about the next step of the plan. After some time, she realized that she had fallen asleep and Raven was shaking her. She quickly put on the necromancer's vest, tied up her hair, and put on the hood. "Oh, we found him." Raven felt that this big sister had overslept. "There are no outsiders here, so you don't have to pretend." Thea rolled her eyes with a stern face. "I am being cautious. Do you understand?" She carried the rack and walked out of the inner room. "Master!" An unusually coquettish female demon knelt down on one knee. "Oh, Mekanset, you have done well this time. Go and rest." The coquettish female demon was full of joy and left immediately. Only then did Thea take off her hood and look at the stranger who was brought in after finally meeting someone she knew. "Yo, Sir Stranger, what are you doing?" "To experience life?" At this moment, the phantom stranger was a perfect example of what it meant to be down and out. He had no shirt, no shoes, and only wore ragged linen pants. His body was covered in whip marks, and his forehead looked like it had been hit by a stick. Blood was still flowing down his face. In order to see Thea, he really spent a lot of effort. It was not until he saw Mekanut, the demonized woman who had persuaded him to escape together, that he finally found the organization. The sadness in his heart was indescribable. He didn't even hear the teasing about experiencing life. Instead, he asked the most important question: "Can you restore my strength?" Thea looked at him in amusement. Ha! Ha ha! You think too highly of me. I can't do it." The eldest miss directly refused. "The power of God? Can I help you recover?" No matter how he thought about it, it was impossible. "Actually, that power has never left you. It is in you." Before she could finish, she was interrupted by the stranger. "Beside me? You said so too. I admit that guy is weird. But you are not qualified. I have seen greater existences. Do you really think you are God? What new God? You are just a bunch of pitiful worms. The difference is too great. You are not qualified to preach to me." The anger that had been suppressed for a long time finally exploded, making the stranger almost crazy. The grief in his heart could no longer be suppressed. He madly grabbed everything, smashed it, and cursed. From God to Thea in front of him, and then to those stingy neighbors when he lived with his wife and children. It was as if the whole world was laughing at him and teasing him. "Come on, what other tricks do you have? Come at me. I don't want to guess anymore. Either kill me, or tell me the answer." The stranger was like a madman. His eyes were bloodshot, and the veins on his forehead were popping. "You are crazy." Raven waved a black flame. It was a demonic flame that belonged to hell. Only a few people could use it. Raven wanted to knock down this maniac. If not for the stranger trying to trick her into hell, none of this would have happened. Don't worry, it is not time yet. Thea stretched out her hand to stop her. This made Raven a little surprised. In her impression, Thea was not a person with a big heart. She had never seen such a scene where she was scolding someone in front of them. Raven humphed gloomily. The two beauties, one big and one small, sat steadily and watched the stranger lose his temper. Not long after, the wife and children who had been carried on the stranger's back and were now on the ground let out a cry. The stranger, who had fallen into the spiritual world, felt as if he was struck by lightning. He scrambled to the side of his wife and children, tears falling down his cheeks. I beg you, save them. They are only mortals. You must have a way, right? Sia closed her eyes and savored the taste for 5 minutes like a charlatan. A hint of a smile appeared on her lips. Phantom stranger, or Judas, you interrupted me just now. You have paid the price for your recklessness once again. The stranger thought that Thea was unwilling to help. His expression was as cold as death. Then, as if he had seen a ghost, he looked at the ordinary silver coin between Thea's fingers. Me? My silver coin? The appearance of the 30 silver coins had long been engraved in the deepest part of his soul. He hurriedly touched his neck. There was nothing there. The silver coin in Thea's hand seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Thea wanted to look up to the sky and laugh. One of the 30 silver coins was in her hand. The material of this silver coin was ordinary, but the power it contained was enough to restart the multiverse. It was not like the Flash's timeline, which could be restarted in a few days or a few years. It was to restore the time when the universe was born. Everything had not yet been born and was still waiting for the opportunity to break out. Even if it was not restarted, she could use the power to create her own universe. She did not want to restart it or create a new one. She could still observe it just like the shadow on Earth too. Just looking at it would benefit her a lot. It could be said that the stranger's trash talk gave Thea an unprecedented opportunity. Therefore, the young mistress was in a particularly good mood. You betrayed Jesus and exchanged his life for silver coins. I wanted to help you, but you misinterpreted my kindness. Those 30 silver coins and the one in my hand are the price. The stranger was speechless. He did not know what to say. Don't think too much. I know the agreement between you and that existence. If he did not agree, this thing would not have been in my hands. Right? You have to do something for me in the future to pay for today's mistake. The stranger was not a fool. From Thea's words, he could tell that his ability could definitely be restored. Otherwise, what would she want him to do? He could not be the gatekeeper of the Quinn Group. Chapter 8:16. Seeing the stranger's expression soften, Thea laughed inwardly. This guy was completely fooled by God. You betrayed him, and you still expect him to save you? Just look at how the Supreme threw the stranger's wife and children into hell without any burden. Human values couldn't restrain him. Toying, watching the stranger toss and turn in the sea of bitterness. This was the Supreme's attitude. Your family is very happy? I'll throw you into hell. You want to be saved? I'll give 1 silver coin to Thea. I'll make you wish you were dead, unable to go up or down. The stranger's situation was exactly the same as when he hanged himself that day, but he didn't realize it at all. The stranger wanted to do something incomparably difficult, to get the silver coin back. Thea could only say that he thought too much. She didn't intend to hand over what she got. Until the end of the world, his journey to atone for his sins wouldn't end. Although she had become a tool for the Supreme to torture the stranger, Thea didn't mind. She cleared her throat. You interrupted me just now. What I meant was, the power is by your side, right, Your Highness? After saying that, she looked at the air to the stranger's left. Who's by my side? The stranger looked left and right, but he couldn't find any clues. However, he had an intuition that he was a big step closer to the truth. You shouldn't have called out my identity. A person with a pair of huge wings on his back walked out of the void, accompanied by countless hymns and the roar of the will of hell. An angel! Raven was shocked, and then hurriedly covered her mouth. Greetings. I'm Thea Quinn of the New Creation Star. May the holy light of heaven shine on the mortal world. I'm the eagle angel Zorier of heaven. Thea and the angel greeted each other. The angel's strength was slightly lower than hers, and he seemed to be on par with Diana. This angel spoke as if he was singing. Thea got the benefits and directly handed the stage to him. The rest of the matter you can settle it yourselves. The stranger looked at Thea, and then at the angel. This matter revealed a sense of strangeness. Have you been by my side all this time? He asked tentatively. Thea coughed and interrupted him. If I'm not mistaken, he was already by your side when you were still Judas. Hearing that there was a fellow by his side who had been following him for 2,000 years, Stranger could no longer remain calm. In these 2,000 years, he had formed countless families. Could it be that this fellow had always been by his side? How is this possible? He loves the world. Even if you are as sinful as you are still his people. Angels protect everyone. Everyone has an angel by their side. Zal continued in his unique aria. Raven glanced at Sia suspiciously. Everyone has one? She thought. Do I have one? Thea rolled her eyes expressionlessly. What nonsense are you talking about? One for each person. You angels have trillions of them. With this number, they would have already flattened hell. This angel business was very familiar, but the rhetoric used was too crude. From the moment you were born and landed on the ground, I have always been by your side, phantom stranger. The gay tone in the angel's words made Thea shiver. In her memory, this angel died and was reborn as a woman. She couldn't afford to offend him. Where is my power? The angel took out Stranger's blue robe. He will always be there waiting for you, as long as you understand the meaning of your existence. Thea looked at Stranger, who couldn't wait to put on the robe again. She knew that he probably still didn't understand, but that had nothing to do with her. Stranger waved his hand. The familiar energy came from the robe and from the depths of his soul. His wife and children's eyes were filled with vigor. Their dull skin regained its texture. They were alive from the bottom of their hearts. What's going on? They are not in the right state. Stranger was shocked. His wife and children were his sore point. Anything could be discussed. He turned to Thea and the angel. They can no longer be revived. What you have recovered is their souls. At least, that's what I think. Thea checked carefully. Angel Zorier was much more perfunctory than her. He said casually, "Take them to heaven. They will welcome a new life there." Stranger's expression changed. He knew too well what a new life meant. It would be a brand new life. His memories of the past would all disappear. His wife and children would be lost forever. He would never be able to find them again. "Help me save them, and I will give you another silver coin," he said with some hope. Oh, Thea's spirit was immediately lifted. If she could get another silver coin, she could choose to create the world directly. Observing the various changes, her realm would instantly rise to an unimaginable level. However, she quickly cut off her greed. Going too far was as bad as falling short. This was Stranger's test, but he didn't say that it wasn't hers. Heaven wanted Stranger to give up his wife and children. Why did she have to interfere? After a mental journey, her heart finally regained clarity. She had already achieved some success in controlling her greedy emotions. "Sorry, I can't do it. They don't have much time left in this world." She pretended to check again and told Stranger the bad news. She didn't say anything else. The very gay angel gave her a kind smile and brought Stranger's wife and children to heaven to be reincarnated. After that, he continued to stay together with Stranger contentedly. Before he left, he invited Thea, but she directly rejected him. She had to borrow a path to heaven, so she might as well go through hell. Moreover, heaven's environment wasn't suitable for her. If she put up a sign in heaven, "Can buy anything, sell anything," the big boss would teach her a lesson. Seeing Stranger and the angel leave, Thea heaved a sigh of relief. The main actors were gone. This drama was over. She could be more casual and not be so restrained. She searched with Raven and found Nibiru's teleportation circle. No one knew where it led to. After Nibiru's occupied this place, he was so poor that he didn't even use it. She checked twice and guessed that it was going to Earth. However, she wasn't very sure. It was possible that they were going to an unknown destination. This made Thea more cautious. She had to protect her escape route. If it was Earth, then everything would be fine. If she entered Apocalypse Star and was surrounded by the new gods, she had to make sure that she could retreat. She couldn't lose the territory she conquered. There were many specialties in Hell, such as alchemical fire oil that could burn for 3 days continuously, the Earth's core that contained a large amount of heat energy buried deep underground, and the remains of some unknown strong people left here from time to time. Many mages who had nothing better to do came to Hell to play, and ended up with all kinds of magic books left behind after they died. Moreover, there were countless evil souls here. Thea couldn't figure out how the souls floated from the underworld to Hell. Was it because the underworld was cold and Hell was warm here? The market here was huge and there were many special products. The things she had to pay were very cheap. The Zergs didn't even need to do anything. Any trash picked up by the Zergs could be sold for a sky-high price here. Seeing that the will of Hell didn't want to drive her away, she settled down with a clear conscience. Tuss' undead army could be said to be completely loyal to her, but Mechanut, who had transformed from a human into a succubus, was not so sure. The will of Hell was very chaotic. Even if there was a spiritual imprint to control it, it was not certain. The Lord of Hell needed to be a demon. Thea could only support Mechanut as the boss, and then leave Tuss and the former Lord, now the Skeleton Guards, to help. The legitimate Demon Lord, his powerful subordinates, and the former Demon Lord formed a balance of power between the three parties. Knowing that Thea and Raven had left, the territory was handed over to her to manage. Mechanut, who was more charming, directly crawled on the ground to show her obedience. "Your strength is still a lot worse." She looked at the succubus. She was too weak to control the situation. In the future, this territory would be the window city between Hell and the outside world. Mechanut's strength must be stronger. "You're lucky." Hell passed a lot of chaotic energy to her. She had no use for it, so she just instilled it into the succubus body. After half an hour of body transformation, when the succubus came out, she was wearing a very revealing red silk robe, a studded belt, a white and smooth back, huge wings, and a slender demon tail. At this time, Mechanut had completely become a demon lord. For the loyalty of the demon, she could only be vigilant. Fear penetrated into the deepest part of Mechanut's heart. Her loyalty for 2 or 3 years should be guaranteed. Thea pulled Raven and stepped on the portal under the eyes of her subordinates. When she stepped out and looked up again, she had already arrived in another world. Chapter 8:17. "Who are you? Where's Raven?" Thea suddenly realized that the big lowly beside her had disappeared and was replaced by a tall and skinny man. He was wearing a brown robe and his eyes were rolled back. He was holding a huge book that was copied together with himself. The tall and skinny man looked at her blankly, as if he had seen through her countless secrets. "Who are you? Where's Raven?" Thea was really frightened. This guy was neither human nor god. He didn't seem to have any strength, but he also seemed to have endless power. Ghosts were probably inferior to him, not to mention stranger. Other than that Schurz Ina, this was the fiercest guy she had ever seen. Thea missed the good times on Earth. She was the strongest there. Now that she was in the outer realm, any random cat or dog would be stronger than her. Those days were really boring. That girl has already returned to her original world. "I'm here to look for you." The brown-robed man's voice was hoarse, but his tone was very polite. The young mistress' beautiful eyes kept sizing up this strange guy. She had some guesses in her heart. There were many big shots in this world, but there were only a few who were so strong that they didn't have any friends. Looking at his appearance, there was only one left. As expected, the brown-robed man seemed to have seen through her thoughts. "I'm a member of the Endless family. I'm Fate." Fate? Thea was really shocked. This was a super big shot, the boss of the Endless family. It was said that he was on the same level as Lucifer, the son of God. Lucifer was said to have 50% of God's strength. This was a big shot that surpassed the Heavenly Father, Uncle Da, as well as the Watchers and Anti-Watchers. Sia bitterly smiled and made a dumbfounded expression, waiting for the big boss to continue. The meaning of the endless family isn't control. It's transcendence. It's a higher level of sublimation. Fate is freedom. Death is life. Dreams are reality. Destruction is creation. Desire is hatred. Despair is hope. Fanaticism is rationality. When Fate's boss mentioned that fate is freedom, he glanced at Sia with a meaningful look. His next words struck her like a bolt of lightning. Your desire for freedom has freed you from the shackles of your original destiny. Thea's face turned pale. Before she could even cover it up, the other party's next sentence made her so excited that she almost jumped up. You have the qualifications to become a member of the Endless Clan. Fate, death, sleep, destruction, desire, despair, fanaticism. These were the family members of the Endless Clan. Which avatar would he be using? Thea's imagination ran wild. In front of the limitless clan, the new deity was nothing. Just as she was wondering if she should submit to fate, fate spoke again. Female who has transcended her own fate, you shall be my sister. Death. Thea waited for 2 seconds. Her bright eyes looked left and right, but she didn't find anything different. Her divine power and magic power were exactly the same as before, unless this death had a power that she didn't know about. What's going on? She was dumbfounded. Was fate playing with her? Or did the higher-ups reject this suggestion? Just as she was at a loss, fate spoke in a tone that seemed to know everything. Not now. Come with me to the starting point of time. That is our home. You still need to know many things. Thea's vision blurred. She felt an indescribable discomfort. After experiencing time travel a few times, she knew that she must have jumped a step on the timeline, or rather, jumped to the starting point. She gently rubbed her forehead. When her vision recovered, she was already in a huge building. It wasn't a traditional square, nor was it a circular building, or any building structure that could be used for human habitation. If she had to describe it forcefully, this place was like an irregular 7-sided building. The building seemed to have a life of its own and could extend itself according to some kind of will. What was displayed in front of her was a hodgepodge. Color lost its meaning here. Thea looked at it for a long time. It seemed like she could decipher any color from the decorations on the walls. But when she looked closely, it wasn't. From her artistic perspective, this building didn't have any sense of beauty. It was even a perfunctory combination of several different styles to form this building. In the middle of this bizarre scene, a long table stood in the middle of her vision. A high chair was at the head of the table, and there were 3 chairs on each side of the long table. There was a picture of an open book and shackles on the back of the high chair. This should be Fate's chair. Thea felt that the first chair on her left had some connection to her, but at most it wouldn't resist. If she sat down now, what awaited her would definitely not be good. The aura on this chair that symbolized death was extremely mixed, which meant that there were many competitors. Sigh. I was happy for nothing. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. The young miss frowned and pondered. She looked at the other chairs. Some were empty and some were a mess. This gave her some confidence. Apart from fate, it seemed like the others hadn't returned to their seats. However, the competition for the other 5 chairs added together wasn't as intense as the one on Death's side. This made her heart heavy. Fate has shown that Death must be a female. You're currently the most suitable candidate. I hope that you'll become my little sister. As a candidate, Death's area can be open to you. If you have any questions, you can get answers there. Before you become my little sister, we won't meet again. After Big Brother Fate finished his cool words, he disappeared before her eyes. Thea was alone in the empty room. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. She breathed lightly, trying to find something that could be called order in this chaotic situation. Where was Death's area? She looked around for a long time, but there was definitely no road sign. She didn't know who to ask for directions. Could she really become the second sister of the Endless family? Death's setting was too high in her memory. It was omnipotent and wasn't restricted by any rules. Anyone, God, or anything could die. From this perspective, it was already the ultimate power of this world. A salted fish like her, who could only shout liar when the big shots were fighting, Would she really have such an awesome future? She wasn't very confident. Thinking about it wouldn't solve the problem at hand. No matter what, she had to fight for it. There were 7 directions. There was a wide, flat path in the middle. Compared to the other 6, some were empty while some were just winding paths. This path could even be used as a highway. Thea felt it with her heart. This was fate's path. She had already turned her back on fate for a long time. She would rather choose nothing than walk down her old path. Could it be this way? She chose another pitch-black path. Suddenly, she woke up. This was the place of her dreams, and it wasn't her. She hurriedly looked to the other side. Gray filled the air. Laughter and curses could be heard in the smoke. It was as if countless souls were telling her that this was the place. Chapter 8:18. After confirming her position, Thea no longer hesitated and stepped into the gray fog. The space in front of her changed drastically. The spacious and simple hall immediately turned into a void where she couldn't see the sky or the ground. She was surrounded by gray fog, and her position was a floating piece of gravel in the void. Up, down, left, right, front, back, there were hundreds and thousands of gravel like the one under her feet. The thick fog blocked her vision, but there were countless more where she couldn't see. She looked around and didn't know where to go. This was a path that symbolized death. If she couldn't find the right path, then what awaited her was death. As a new god, she still had this knowledge. Here, it was a competition of understanding of death. The deeper the understanding, the better the path to the end. All roads lead to Rome. It was impossible here. There was only one truth. There was only one path that led to death. Damn it, I'm just a reserve. Do you have to make it so complicated? Thea couldn't help but curse. Fortunately, she didn't stick to good or evil. She changed her avatar to study souls. Her knowledge of death was much higher than that of a new god. Otherwise, wouldn't she have died here? Although the path ahead wasn't clear, she wasn't in a hopeless situation. The stranger coin was still in her hands. She could use the power of the coin to restart everything, but that was just a chance. No matter how she thought about it, it was a loss. Moreover, the whole world had been rebooted. Was her family still there? Was Diana still there? Returning to the beginning of the world, being alone wasn't a happy thing. She looked at the gravel in front of her with melancholy. She had to choose a path that led to her goal. It was simply too difficult. Moreover, judging from her senses, although there were more than 10 gravel around her, there were only 3 or 4 that could really make her stop. The rest were either traps or didn't suit her. She kept looking at the 3 gravel. She was very sure that her path was one of them. However, there were still many choices for her to choose from. This made her very depressed. Could she send a clone to explore the path? Unfortunately, in the face of death, everything was equal. Humans and new gods were the same. She couldn't use many of her techniques, and her physical fitness was only slightly stronger than ordinary people. The consequence of flying in the air was falling into the void. He carefully thought about the description of the Limitless clan in his memories. They transcended the world, and every single one of them had the strength of an overseer or anti-overseer. Big Brother Fate and Second Sister Death were powerful existences that surpassed this level. The end of all things. Thea sat cross-legged, her elbows supporting her head as she pondered. It seemed that she could only use this move. She made up her mind, and a colorless and transparent energy appeared in her hand. This was the prayers in her order scale. Back then, she had relied on it to connect with the vital origin. Now that she had reached a critical juncture, she felt that only the prayers would be able to guide her. He had helped the ordinary people so much, so the ordinary people should help him too. She was absolutely certain of this. Both of them were formed from the faith of the masses. From a certain perspective, the power of will shared some similarities with the Limitless race. Which way should I go? Thea asked in her mind. The transparent energy was quickly consumed and finally pointed to a piece of rock. Haha! Thea wanted to laugh out loud. This piece of rock was one of the 3 pieces that she had been hesitating about. She didn't hesitate any longer. She quickly jumped onto the piece of gravel. Time had lost its meaning here. Thea kept moving forward without stopping. Everything was difficult at the beginning, There were many choices at the beginning, so she had to be careful and cautious. At the same time, she had to conserve the power of will. Who knew how long this path would be? She had to analyze every step she took, and then use the power of will to choose the correct path from the rocks that she had chosen. Although her speed was slow, she still had a 60 to 70% chance of reaching the end. The only thing that troubled her was that the power of will had been used up, and the road ahead was vast. That would be shocking. She didn't know if it was because God was satisfied with her as an actress, or if Big Brother Fate was going easy on her, but when 2/3 of the power of will had been used up, she finally walked out of the void and stepped onto flat ground. The young mistress relaxed and lay on the ground with her arms and legs spread out. She muttered a few words of thanks to God. After a long time, she regained her strength. She stood up and looked around. The space wasn't small, but other than a lonely house, there was only a large stone tablet. Compared to the big house from before, the house in front of her wasn't even as big as a bathroom. Out of caution, she first looked at the stone tablet. It was as if it had been standing there since the beginning of the universe. It was a black stone made of unknown material, and there were some words on it. When she looked at the stone tablet, she didn't know if she had become smaller or the stone tablet had become bigger. The stone tablet, which was originally only 10 meters tall, suddenly became more than 10,000 meters tall. Fortunately, she had recovered all of her abilities after leaving the void-shattered area. Sia flew to the top and looked down from above. The first place was undoubtedly empty. Second place, third place. The young mistress was speechless as she looked down. Finally, she found her name at the 78th place. Her shining name appeared on the stone tablet. She was actually a little excited, but this ranking was a pain in the ass. Before Thea could make a face, a message was transmitted from the stone tablet. The message wasn't complicated. It was describing the selection criteria. As for why they hid the selection criteria in their house and didn't disclose it to the outside world or provide any explanation, Thea felt that she could understand. This was because she was the one who benefited from it. This rule made sense to her, and it made a lot of sense. There were tens of thousands of names on the stone tablet, but she was ranked 78th. Everyone else's names were black, but only her name was shining. She knew how fishy this was. For example, her and Diana's old friend, Hades, was ranked 4,119. Death god Hypnos was ranked beyond 8,000. The Black Death Emperor, who she had never seen before, was ranked 105. Darkseid was ranked 319. There was also the King of Tears, who died when he saw her face, and Doomsday, who could create death, were ranked around 1,000. This ranking didn't mean that their understanding of death was inferior to that of the young mistress. Uncle De aside, the Black Death Emperor's understanding of death was much better than Thea's. However, the reason he was ranked lower was that they didn't know the selection criteria. The first one, which Thea felt was the most important, was the one that made her stand out. When Big Brother Fate first revealed the veil of all the worlds, he had already stipulated that the death of his second sister would be his second sister. In other words, the candidate for this position must be female. 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 Important things must be repeated 3 times. Uncle De, the Black Death Emperor, and the others were eliminated from the beginning. It was useless no matter how deep their understanding of death was. Chapter 8:19. In terms of understanding of death, Thea estimated that no one could surpass the Black Death Emperor. After all, he existed at the beginning of life. The death of the Black Death Emperor was the death of all life before it was born. The second sister that Thea wanted to fight for represented the death at the beginning of the universe. The death of the Black Death Emperor could not affect the stone because the stone had no life. However, the second sister could, and the stone could also die. There was a huge gap between the two. Even so, the Black Death Emperor's understanding of death had reached the extreme, and she could not even scratch the surface of it. Without this female restriction, Thea would not have anything to do with the stone tablet and the small house. Could be said that Big Brother Fate was very cunning. He not only looked at the realm but also set a lot of conditions. For example, the rule that the god of death must be a female eliminated 90% of the gods of death. Uncle De, for example, had worked hard for hundreds of millions of years to figure out the rules of death. In the end, he made up his mind and let the Flash and the Black Runner kill him. He walked the path of life again, abandoned his cultivation, and washed away all the troubles. In the end, it was useless and he did not learn anything. This was a typical case of the god of death who was tortured by the dark rules. Who knew that there was a gender requirement for the position. There were many conditions for the god of death's second sister. In addition to the gender requirement, she could not hurt her family. This rule eliminated all the gods who had fought with each other. Hades, for example, was not weak. The reason why he was ranked so low was that he had too many relatives in his household register, which was more than 1 meter thick, and he had killed them too ruthlessly. In the end, Big Brother Fate decided that the partner of the second sister could not be immortal. This rule eliminated a lot of gods who liked to play around in the human world. In short, under these messy rules, Thea's ranking broke through the top 100. If she got the first place, she would automatically succeed the position. The stone tablet explained it very clearly. The only thing that limited her now was the realm. If she got the position of the new god of death, she felt that she could enter the top 20. After that, she could integrate her understanding and use it. She would most likely be higher than that. But the god of death position was not easy to obtain. It was of a higher level than the god of soul position. In the new god system, it could be considered a top god position. She didn't dwell too much on the rankings and chose to focus on what was in front of her. Looking away from the stone tablet, the whole world seemed to return to normal. The stone tablet returned to its original height of 10 meters, standing there quietly, waiting for the next time to look at it. Thea was slightly on guard. She pushed the door open and walked into the house. A dressing mirror, a bed, and nothing else. After she entered the room, a set of clothes appeared beside the bed. Divine artifact. She picked it up and looked at it. It seemed to be ordinary clothes, and there was nothing special about it. Halter top, black ripped jeans, a wide belt, leather gloves, and leather boots. An amulet appeared on the dressing table. It was in the shape of an Egyptian cross, symbolizing life. Death carries a talisman that symbolizes life? Eldest Miss felt a little dizzy, but she followed his advice and put it on obediently. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her belly button and arms were exposed. She was dressed in a punk style, which was completely different from her usual style. She was a little speechless. It still seems a little out of place. Oh right, the hair. When she realized the problem, she saw that her blonde hair had turned black. Her eyes were still emerald green, but there was a lot of black eyeshadow. Her lips had also turned bright black. Oh my, how unconventional. She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, she had returned to her original appearance. This set of clothes was more like an exclusive set. She could change into it with a thought and revert back to normal when she didn't want to. The only thing that couldn't be changed was the Anka amulet. Thea searched the house for a long time. There were no secret martial arts manuals, no cultivation notes, no words on the wall, and no divine artifact under the bed. She could only walk out of the house slowly. When she looked at the stone tablet again, she found that her ranking had risen by 1 place to 77th. It was not hard to guess that it had something to do with the amulet. If there were 3 or 4 competitors, this amulet would have to fight for a while. Now, she had benefited from it. Death, but wearing the amulet that symbolized life. These two seemingly contradictory things were now combined. The amulet had given her a big hint. Finding death from life would be her mission for a long time in the future. This idea did not come from Thea's thinking. It suddenly appeared in her mind, as if she had known it for a long time. Could it be that the increase in ranking could also lead to the understanding of the realm? Without anyone to guide her, she could only guess blindly. I think I can rise by 1 place. Thea used up the remaining 1/3 of her willpower. The power of belief burned fiercely. Her ranking barely jumped by 1 place to 76th. Following that was another part of the understanding of death. After absorbing the new knowledge, Thea smiled. The willpower was effective. This made things easier. She had a feeling that if she burned like this for another 17 or 18 times, even if she did not look for the source, which represented death, it would come to her. As for whether or not the Black Death Emperor had the source, she did not think so. He did not have a soul. Compared to the growth of a new god, it was a completely different system. She reached out and held Anka's amulet. This amulet allowed her to leave and enter this area at will. This was undoubtedly good news. She did not want to play hopscotch every time she came. At the same time, it allowed her to teleport to areas with death. In other words, as long as someone died in a certain area, she could teleport there. Seeing that she did not miss anything, she left the room that represented death. The 52 parallel worlds were at the center of the world. Outside them were the gods' realm, including Hell, the Apocalypse Star, and the New Creation Star. Outside them were the Watchers and Anti-Watchers, as well as her endless family's base. The rapid passage of time made her realize that she could actually enter the timeline with her main body. The power of Anka's amulet was far beyond her imagination. From the origin of time to her timeline, then from the god's realm to the god's realm to the parallel worlds to Earth, the violent fluctuations of teleportation made her dizzy. "Are you okay?" The big lowly raven was puzzled. She did not know why Anka's expression had suddenly turned so ugly. In her mind, the two of them had just stepped through the teleportation door together a second ago. She did not know that Anka had just completed a series of emotional and wondrous journeys. "I'm fine. Let's hurry up and leave. I'm really tired. I need to rest for 2 days." First, it was the Sharp Insect Tribe. Then it was Orange Lamp, Stranger, Hell, and the Endless Family. She was exhausted. The big lowly made an O and did not say anything else. The two of them walked out of the teleportation formation. Their luck was good. This was Earth. Looking at the time, it was less than a month since they entered Hell. In reality, they had been slaughtering their way through Hell for at least half a year. This trip was daunting but not dangerous. Raven had avoided the fate of falling into the hands of the Ghost Father, while Thea had obtained great benefits. The two of them bade farewell and went back to rest. After taking a bath, she lay on her big bed. She could finally rest. Although she wanted to rest, she could not help but think about death. Currently, the one who had the most competition for her position was the Black Death Emperor. Her advantage was in objective conditions, while the Black Death Emperor's advantage was his high realm. Realms were things that accumulated over time. Thea was not confident that she could surpass the Black Death Emperor in a short period of time. Chapter 820. It was hard to say what would restrict Black Death Emperor. For example, the gay angel Zoriel, who was always by Stranger's side, turned into a woman when he was resurrected. Thea, who was lying on the bed, was worried. What if Black Death Emperor changed his personality and turned into a woman? What would she do? At that time, death would be in his bag. Black Death Emperor must die. Although she couldn't kill him, she could beat him into an idiot. It was difficult to keep everything pure and pure, but it was easy to blaspheme. Adding some green of all things or red of all things into his pure body, and then finding a corner to seal him with 100 layers of seals was the idea that the young miss came up with. Raising the banner of justice and gathering the power of the entire universe to help her eliminate potential competitors. This was a business worth doing. Moreover, Anka's amulet hinted that she could see death from life, so the study of life equation was indispensable. In short, Black Death Emperor must be eliminated. After staying at home for 3 days, Milady finally recovered from her fatigue. She started to patrol around. First, she took a stroll around Star City's novice village. Damien Dark, who would appear in the original timeline, was captured by her to plant corn. The criminals in Star City were no longer a threat. This was also the reason why Tommy and Laurel ran to Gotham when Barbara summoned them. There were too many people and too little food, so they could only go out and hunt. Shadow, who was 7 months pregnant, moved to the new continent to prepare to give birth to the next generation of the Quinn family. Red Arrow Roy Harper, like many young heroes, chose to travel in order to find his own path. The pitiful Green Arrow had run to Central City to help Barry beat up Savitar these past few days. Thea was given the cold shoulder, so she could only go to work obediently. On the way, she received a call from Louise Ryan. She was surprised. The two agreed to meet at a coffee shop. After a simple greeting, Louise talked about the main topic of the day. She had a fight with Clark. Clark is too stubborn. The Daily Planet was acquired, so he changed his policy and leaned toward the online media. What's wrong with that? After giving birth, Louise wasn't as fierce as she was when she was young. Her words were very appropriate. Stubborn old man, he's like an old man in his 70s or 80s, clinging to the old ways of the print media. I can't even explain it to him. Does Krypton still have the habit of buying newspapers? Louise complained indignantly. Sia sipped her coffee leisurely and finally figured out the connection between the two. This was indeed a tragedy. The decline of print media was inevitable. Young people and even old people had begun to abandon print media. They had chosen online media, which allowed them to obtain information faster. It didn't involve the issue of justice or evil. It was a complete change of concept. No matter how powerful one's strength was or how powerful one's magic was, it was useless. The Daily Planet, a newspaper established in 1826, was now faltering. It had reached the end of its life. In order to take care of Superman's emotions, whether it was her Quinn Corporation, Wayne Corporation, or even a few rich superheroes, everyone tacitly avoided the Daily Planet. Today, they had all avoided it, and the result was neither good nor bad. The Daily Planet was acquired by a neutral financial group. The new boss wasn't good, but he wasn't bad either. Student Clark, who was unhappy, found out that the new boss had evaded taxes. He loudly questioned Louise, who wanted to compromise, whether her conscience or money was more important. Thea was also speechless. There was almost no one who didn't evade taxes these days. From her Quinn to Wayne to the Palmer Corporation, all of them had this habit. Could be said that the new boss of the Daily Planet was just very unlucky to have run into Brother Superman's gun. She didn't know what the new boss was thinking. He got rid of the old editor-in-chief, Perry, and chose Louise as the new editor-in-chief. This escalated the already tense family atmosphere. Clark felt that his wife didn't support him and instead chose to side with the enemy. For the first time, he slammed the table at Louise. Louise was now the producer of the new corporation's evening news department and the executive vice president of the new media. This was a much higher level than her previous position as a reporter. What do you think I should do? This isn't my compromise, it's the progress of society. Louise poured out her grievances. Thea was speechless. What could she say? It wouldn't be good to say too much. It would seem that she and Superman were very close, and it would seem insincere if she said too much. She chose to swirl her coffee spoon and listen to the story slowly. This is what I think. I should have more in common with Clark. Maybe this will make things more harmonious, Louise said carefully. Could be seen that she had thought about it for a long time. She wasn't just complaining, but putting it into action. She was trying to prove that she valued her relationship and insisted on the truth. She didn't want to break up their relationship because of her principles, so she could only find common ground from another perspective. Thea felt that Louise was becoming more and more intelligent. She was much better than when she went to question Zod. You want to join the Alliance? No, I want to learn the Kryptonian language and customs. It would be best if I have the ability to fight alongside Clark, Louise said earnestly. Thea looked at her. She could buy anything and sell anything. She definitely couldn't use it on her. After all, she was a friend. She couldn't trick her. To package a normal person to the level of Superman was an epic mission. However, it wasn't difficult for those who didn't know how to do it. Thea still had some confidence. Louise looked like a weakling, but she had the potential to become a strong person. The Super Queen of Earth 3 corresponded to Wonder Woman, and her counterpart was Louise. However, the fate of this world made her ordinary, and she became Superman's accessory. She led Louise to her lab and created a high-tech bracelet in front of her. It's purely technological equipment. It's similar to the smart bracelets you use at home. Can provide you with all kinds of knowledge when you're asleep. Thea pressed a button as she spoke, and a screen popped up. You can download any information you need. I've saved the Kryptonian language and customs and all the martial arts on Earth. Learning this won't take up too much of your brain power. Conservatively speaking, you can finish it in 30 days. As for how well you can use it, that's up to you. Decent martial arts and armor. You have the combat ability to be a first-rate heroine. That's great. Thank you, Thea. Louise hugged her happily and went home to do her research. Thea wanted to leave immediately, but she accidentally saw Superman looking at her from afar. Well, it was far enough. Dude was sitting on the moon. It didn't seem appropriate to pretend not to see him and just walk away. Thea could only fly up. Chapter 821. Superman was a little dispirited today. He didn't shave his beard, and he didn't wear a blue shirt or a red cape, which was rare. Instead, he wore a shirt and jeans, sitting alone in the crater. It was obvious that the couple's quarrel had affected him more than Louise. My father sent me to Earth, and it took me 30 years to find my own principles. I used Clark to report the truth, and Superman to bring hope and encouragement to mankind. I don't know if it's my fault or the world's fault. He obviously heard their previous conversation and wanted to continue the topic. Thea didn't understand why the couple liked to talk to her. There was no elegant environment like a coffee shop, so she could only take out a wine barrel. It was very rough, a specialty of hell. It was ironic. The wine was unusually light and had a long aftertaste. Drinking it could clear one's mind and quicken one's thinking. It was very popular with the demons in hell who were dizzy from the impact of chaos. It was a rare wine. Thea handed Superman a glass. Ignoring the moon's gravity, the two of them drank one glass each. Good wine. Clark didn't know that this was a specialty of hell. He thought it was a new product from Quinn Group and kept cheering. Superman complained as he drank the wine. His wife didn't understand the change in the work environment and the fickleness of his colleagues. Shouldn't journalists report the truth? Louise said that she wants to give ordinary people the reports they want to see. God. She actually said something like that. Is the truth more important or the demand more important? You and Diana are gods walking on Earth. Can you tell me the answer? Being called the god of the human world, the eldest miss is still very happy. She chooses her words carefully and says, in the past, believers thought that they were priests and shepherds, while ordinary people were a flock of sheep. They naturally placed themselves in a high position. Superman frowned. Now it's equal. Everyone has the right to pursue their interests. That's right. The monopoly of knowledge has been broken. People have the right to choose, so... She dragged her voice. Why do you stubbornly think that people need your reports? Superman was a little confused. Are the facts not important anymore? Thea finally had a new understanding of her stubbornness. Let's talk about the priests later. There are bad people among them. But there are also some good people who are devout and virtuous, right? Superman nodded. He had read a lot of human works. Many scientists were part-time priests. It could be said that they had contributed to the development of mankind. The ancient priests grasped knowledge and understood the world. They did not tell the world the truth directly but guided it bit by bit. Today's superheroes were doing similar things to them. Could you tell ordinary people about Darkseid's brutality? Can you tell me how harsh the environment of the human universe is? The information won't be disclosed. Will you disclose the technology in the Fortress of Solitude? Would Batman reveal all the secrets he had? None of us will, but as long as we maintain a righteous heart and selectively tell the people the truth, this is the safest way. Superman felt that Thea's words were a little twisted, but he didn't know how to refute them. Actually, by the way, I think the problem between you two isn't whether the news is true or not. It's that you don't talk much and have too few common topics. Thea had long seen through it. Whether the news was true or not, it was all nonsense. The key was that there was a problem with the absolutely righteous foundation of their relationship. When Louise, who was obsessed with death, met Superman, who was incomparably delusional, it was like a golden wind and morning dew meeting. The two of them were extremely in love. It must have felt good to have sex while shouting that justice would prevail. It must have been a great feeling. Now that she was a mother, Louise was a lot more realistic, but Superman was still the same. This caused a rift between the two of them. The wiser Louise wanted to fully enter her husband's world. She worked hard to learn all kinds of combat skills because she saw this. Clark, I don't know what Joel said to you, but it's not right for you to divide yourself into two roles. Your so-called ordinary life is going to and from work day after day. Ordinary people don't live like that. You don't have any entertainment. Look at Kara, she's very happy now. Superman was dizzy. He followed her instructions and looked in Kara's direction with his supervision. He saw Kara in Nakanil carrying all kinds of bags. Her face was a little ugly, and her tongue was almost sticking out. Lena was walking through countless shops in high spirits. She talked to Kara from time to time and asked for her opinion. Kara, who was exhausted from shopping, could only nod and shake her head to express her opinion. Lena didn't care. She dragged the dispirited Kara into another shop like she was dragging a dead dog. Superman looked at Thea with a strange expression. Is this what you mean by happiness? Why do I feel like my little cousin is about to faint? Thea also covered her face. They usually had a lot of fun. What a coincidence today. But she was very thick-skinned. She nodded. Yes, living a normal life like an ordinary person and enjoying life. That's happiness. If you want to give people hope, then you have to be full of hope yourself. You have to experience all kinds of beauty in life and believe that everything will be fine. That's the problem. Superman was a little enlightened. Everything will be fine. That's a good saying. Thea narrowed her eyes. Next time I introduce you to the saint, you'll have a lot in common. She couldn't solve practical problems with words. She gave Superman a bracelet. The red sun radiation inside could suppress Superman's various abilities. He could eat, sleep, go shopping, and accompany his wife like an ordinary person. Before she left, she gave Superman a bunch of books on household, food, and shopping. She also suggested that he change his hairstyle to add a little freshness. Superman's super-thinking ability was not a bluff. He finished reading a thick clothing guide and a whole year's worth of fashion magazines in less than 3 seconds. Thea asked a few questions casually, and Superman answered them fluently. Okay. With this professional knowledge, I'll be a good advisor when I go shopping with my wife in the future. Thea collected a lot of books on clothing, home decorations, lawn maintenance, and food. Superman flipped through them as if he had found a treasure. He flew back home happily. Is this the knowledge of a house husband? The young lady was speechless. Although the method was a little unorthodox, it solved Superman's family crisis. This was a great thing. Back on Earth, she went to several places. The world was peaceful. Finally, she went to the vanishing point. Chapter 8:22. At the end of time, at the vanishing point. You still haven't found Bruce? Golden Vanguard shook his head. He was maliciously teleported before, and his trajectory deviated from Omega's setting. It's more difficult to find him now. Thea didn't have a good solution either. From regular teleportation to irregular teleportation, Golden Vanguard led a group of old soldiers to fix the time error behind him. As for when it would end, Golden Vanguard, who had a great sense of honor, expressed that he didn't know. Dealing with various matters at the vanishing point, they tried to find out Bruce's trajectory. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything. Today, in the self-proclaimed Time Master Council, there were more than 100 old bureaucrats, 5 spaceships, and their comprehensive technological level was only 20 years more advanced than Earth's. There were less than 10 young people who could fight, and their weapons were also counterfeit energy guns. They were too lazy to fight the nameless ones, and they couldn't beat the famous ones. In short, it was a very awkward organization. The work of the 2 speedsters was quite effective. Those who randomly teleported in the timeline were now almost extinct. Back on Earth, her brother Oliver found her and told her his purpose for coming. Barry's actions are very fast. Wally was rescued, and Savitar is Barry? So you want to hide from him and find a way to deal with Savitar? After her brother, who had brought his own food to Central City to fight monsters, finished telling the story, Sia searched her wealth and threw a green grenade to her brother. What is this? Oliver didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Needless to say, this color was very similar to his fighting style. According to the inert grenade made by the Turtleman cells, after the explosion, it will create a strong deceleration zone with a diameter of about 500 meters. After Savitar decelerates, you guys go together and shoot him to death. She said indifferently. The reality was more or less the same as what she estimated. The Flashberry, Lightning Kid Wally West, Pulse Bart Allen, and Savitar, the four speedsters ran madly in the center of the city. In the end, Green Arrow used the grenade given by her sister to create a deceleration zone at the meeting point. It was impossible to shoot him to death. The speedsters were all decelerated to the level of a normal person, and the bullets were almost stationary in the zone. At this moment, it was time for Green Arrow to perform. She calculated the direction the enemy could dodge in and calculated the time in advance. As the #1 archery master in the world, Oliver did not stop and shot out 20 arrows in one breath. Even though the arrows were almost stationary, they sealed off all directions. Savitar was finally defeated. The naturally kind-hearted Barry was like him in the future, choosing to banish Savitar to the seraphic space. Could be said that history had taken an astonishing turn to the right path. Savitar's fate seemed to be to stay in the seraphic space. Miraculous fate. Thea didn't alarm anyone as she watched from the sky by herself. Savitar's calculations had turned into nothing in the end. The fetters of fate were not so easy to break away from. For the next half a month, she kept moving between Earth and other planets. In order to get rid of the Black Death King, she planned to use a more active attitude to deal with the Dark Knight. After the Dark Knight, it was the White Death King. At her current level of power, the White Death King seemed a bit ridiculous. It was just the descent of the Black Death King. A little bit of death chi had polluted the will of Earth, causing the green of all things and red of all things to go berserk. That little bit of death chi could not even be compared to the surface. She directly bypassed the tree parliament and used the hidden lines on the swamp monsters to enter the green of all things. She set up a big net around the entire Earth's will. Even if the Black Death King penetrated some of his power, it would not have a big impact. Seeing that Earth had stopped the indiscriminate cutting, whether it was the natural environment or the development of human society, she extracted some energy from the green of all things and created 10 fake green light rings. After arranging the matters of Earth, she rushed to the main planet of Ura. Unfortunately, the suggestion of the Allied forces was rejected from the beginning. The little blue man was as stubborn as a rock. Your vision is too narrow. I can ignore the matter of you informing Laflas to ambush me, but why do you still insist on that ridiculous idea? Yellow Lamp is evil? Blue Lamp is Abin Sajigian, so he is a traitor? Blue Lamp is a traitor? Don't you know that the crisis of the universe is coming? The relationship between the two sides had fallen to the lowest point in history. She was not stupid enough to walk into someone else's home and start a war. She wanted the position of death, but she did not want to die yet. The little blue man was a classic example of hiding his strength. After hundreds of millions of years of accumulation, it was hard to say whether or not he had a special method to restrain her. She directly used an illusion to enter Ura, trying to make a last effort. The little blue man did the same thing and proposed 3 conditions. Give up the protection of the blue lamp, hand over the blue lamp, and disband the yellow lamp. Thea was so angry that she laughed. You will die a horrible death. After saying that, she cancelled the illusion. In order to beat the Black Death King into a fool, she could not stop the Dark Knight. However, in order to increase the power of will in the order scale, she had to do something. She could not let it go, but she also had to let the Black Death King be successfully summoned. It was difficult to control the balance. Fortunately, the little blue man did not listen to her. Otherwise, she would be very troubled if the Black Death King could not jump out. The trip to Ura was not a fruitless one. There were originally 12 guardians. Back then, one was possessed by a parallax and killed in Seaside City. 2 more were exiled from Gantherside. The last time Thea went to Ura, there were 9, but today she only saw 8. Excluding the factors such as diarrhea, menstruation, and childbirth, this absent guardian was most likely the one who triggered the Dark Knight, Scarface. There was a 90% chance that he would go to the 666 sector and start summoning the Black Lamp Ring. Thea estimated that the whole thing was coming soon. Although she did not have much hope, she still used an illusion to go to the base of the Purple Lamp Core, planet Zamarin. The Purple Lamp of Love, also known as the Bluestone Corps, was very friendly to her. They were also the descendants of a famous family. Their founder was of the same race as the Little Blue Man, but there was a difference in the treatment of the Black Lamp Ring. Several female guardians left Ura and came here to find the total energy of love, and then established the Purple Lamp Corps. Your Majesty, please come and see our burning love. Queen Zamarin, who also had blue skin and was of the same race as the Little Blue Man, brought her to see the total energy of the purple lamp. Thea was shocked by what she saw. There were 2 corpses wrapped in a huge purple crystal. What is this? Thea looked at the shape of the corpses and the weapons wrapped in the same crystal and asked curiously. They are a pair of lovers, a pair that will never change until death do us part. Their love for each other has already crossed the boundaries of mortals, and is the source of our strength. Queen Zamalin spoke as if she was singing a song, expressing her views on love. Thea was a little speechless. The 2 corpses wrapped in the crystal had turned into fossils. They seemed to be Hawkman and Hawkgirl, right? And looking at the time when the crystal was formed, it was at least 4,000 years old or even older. She had been wondering why the 2 weaklings, Hawkman and Hawkgirl, didn't exist in her normal timeline. Now the truth was out. Horus was killed by Lady Zamarin, and the 2 of them were unlucky enough to be brought to this planet by an alien spaceship. The Queen's love did exist, and their love made them never separate. This strange crystal protected their souls, and their souls stayed together forever, without reincarnation or departure. Naturally, Hawkman and Hawkgirl would not appear in Thea's timeline. Thea wanted to remind the Purple Lamp that these 2 corpses would be the priority of the Black Lamp Ring's resurrection, but she was in no position to say that. Once the corpses were taken out, the Purple Lamp Corps would be destroyed. It didn't make much difference whether the purple lamp destroyed the crystal or the black lamp destroyed it. She could only express some feelings of love. Now, anger, fear, hope, and pity. These 4 emotions had been controlled freely. Greed had been tested by God, and could be considered a small success. Only the courage of the green lamp and the love of the purple lamp were left. Queen Zamarin's words were too extreme in her opinion. As long as it was love, it was right. If you loved someone, you could do anything, disregard the rules, the law, and universal values. This was a little crazy, and really didn't suit her. At the end of the conversation, she still talked about the Dark Knight. The Queen's optimism surprised her. In her understanding, this level of crisis happened a few times in the universe every 100 years. It was not a big deal. She even looked down on Thea, the new god, for being unable to keep her cool. Thea chuckled and didn't say anything more. Just like the saint said, "Everything will be fine." She was happy to see it happen. "Since you are not afraid, why should I be? Let's just sit and wait." Chapter 8:23. 3 days later, Thea was in a secret base in the metropolis. Her hands were behind her head, and her long legs were propped up on the table as she stared intently at the surveillance screen. On the screen, a pale-skinned man was cleaning up a corpse. The man was agitated and mumbling to himself as if he was on a pilgrimage. Is this necrophiliac really worth our attention? Death Knell, who was tall and burly like a brown bear, was puzzled. Why did Thea care so much about this person? He was just a normal psychopath who killed his entire family and cleaned up the corpses. Lord Death Knell could kill 3 of these scumbags with a single slash. Io? This is a psychopath. Just as Death Knell finished his sentence, the man smiled unusually happily and adjusted his collar in front of the mirror. He then took out a technological device and aimed it at his head before pressing the switch. A flame flashed and the man lay in a pool of blood with a creepy smile on his face. He lay where the blood of his entire family gathered. Death Knell was dumbfounded. He had killed many people, even if it wasn't 1,000, it was at least 800. Of course, he had seen people who committed suicide in desperation, but it was the first time he had seen someone commit suicide so happily. This person who committed suicide was no ordinary person. This was the intuition that he had honed after years of being a mercenary. When he was alive, he was nothing special. But after he died, he seemed to have become stronger in an instant. The surveillance screen went black. The two of them waited for 3 minutes before the man in the pool of blood stood up again. He was wearing a black leather mask, and there was an inverted triangle and 5 vertical lines on his chest. From afar it looked like a palm print. He was wearing a dark cloak and tights, and there was still a smile on the man's lips as if he was mocking the world. The most eye-catching thing was the black ring on his right middle finger. A black ring? Is that why you're so cautious? Death Knell had the yellow light ring too, so he could naturally see through it. Thea looked at the first black light and remained silent for a long time. She put down her leg and sighed. Everything has begun. Increase the security around my mother's place. Tell our people to be careful. Pull back the front line and gather in a few strong fortresses. Wait for an opportunity to counterattack. So pessimistic? Is this necrophiliac that powerful? Death Knell had never seen Thea take the initiative to defend herself. He was in disbelief. According to the prophecy, it's very powerful. It's never wrong to be careful. She had never told anyone how to deal with it. Actually, if he cast a resurrection spell on William Hand, codenamed Black Hand, everything would be fine. Resurrection spells were rare, but not impossible. Others aside, as the god of souls, she could also cast resurrection spells with a little effort. Could be said that the Night of Darkness was a huge event, but it could be delayed for a short period of time. The Black Hand was the connection between the Black Death Emperor and the world. Once the Black Hand was revived, the Black Death Emperor could only return to his home. However, this could only be delayed. Black Hand was a very stubborn person. He would do everything he could to court death. He was literally courting death. How could they possibly defend against it? What's more, Thea wanted to fight the Black Death Emperor. Even if she couldn't kill him, she had to at least injure him. How could she let him go home? What if he cross-dressed? He instructed Death Knell to gather the hidden forces that belonged to him and preserve the elites. As for the outer forces, they could only be considered unlucky if they died. Thea teleported back to her home. She had an emergency meeting with Moira and waited for the situation to develop further. At the same time, her clone was in Sector 666 of the universe. The dead sector was like a terrifying beast with its mouth wide open, waiting to devour the flesh and blood of the living. Kerrigan of the Sharp Insectoids was beside her. She didn't know what the Queen of Blades was waiting for, but Thea did not explain. Not long after, the clone received a signal from the main body and knew that it was time. The darkest day in the universe had finally arrived. Tell your people to prepare. The prophecy says that countless dangers will fly out from here. I want your people to do their best to stop them. Stop as many as you can. Although she was full of questions, Kerrigan still did as she was told. The insectoids blotted out the sea of stars. There were all kinds of giant insectoids everywhere. Couldn't be helped. Normal insectoids could not enter space. Most of the insectoids on the battlefield were elites and above. If they were all wiped out, it would greatly affect Kerrigan's rule. Don't worry, the losses won't be too big. Thea was very confident. Even if the Black Lanterns could come back from the dead, they would not care about the insectoids. They were just too weak. After waiting for a while, suddenly, there were many reflective dots in space that could absorb light. The dots looked like little bugs, but compared to the vastness of the universe, the shiny objects were too small. However, from the initial 1 or 2 light dots, they quickly grew to thousands and even hundreds of millions. They rose to an uncountable level, and the entire sector seemed to be filled with them. Thea stared at the dots. They were rings, Black Lantern rings. The Black Death Emperor used the Anti-Watchers as the main energy source for the Black Lanterns, and the souls of the entire Sector 666 as the carrier of death energy. Except for the first ring, which was given to the Black Hand on Earth, all the other rings were here. The Black Death Emperor was the death before all life began. He was not in this world and needed the Black Lantern rings to gather energy and summon him from the void to the material world. Although Thea did not intend to stop the summoning process, she did not want it to go too smoothly in the early stages. Tell your people to get ready. Kerrigan's eyes glowed with a unique light. Many gigantic insects with sharp horns on their bodies stood at the front line. Behind them were long-range insects with all kinds of trapping abilities, slowing down and restricting movement. At the back were 500,000 frog-like insects with big heads, small bodies, and bulging eyes. Their mouths lit up when they opened and closed. These were new insects that Kerrigan specially created according to Thea's request. Destroying the Black Lantern rings was not easy, but it was not difficult either. The white lanterns could be completely extinguished, the resurrection spell could be completely extinguished, and even the angel Zoriel beside the stranger could be wiped out. This was because they all had strong life energy and would cause damage to the Black Lantern rings made of death energy. Other than that, there was the traditional method of the 7 Lantern Corps. Green Lantern and any one of the other 6 lanterns could destroy the Black Lantern rings. In general, the Guardians of OUA had a unique vision. They had realized the uniqueness of Green Lantern billions of years ago. But considering OUA's refusal to cooperate, Thea had to find another way. Some heroes and villains could send out strange emotional projections that could also destroy the Black Lantern. Thea remembered that the female fox could imitate a deep-sea anglerfish and send out a weak white light to destroy the Black Lantern. However, she was not strong enough and would be paralyzed after one shot. The Zerg's genes could avoid this problem. They gave up on attack, defense, and speed on a genetic level just to have more shots in battle. Chapter 8:24. Thea didn't use her trump card right away. 500,000 bugs were nothing compared to the huge number of Zergs. She just didn't do any experiments. Out of caution, she didn't know if the frog bugs could restrain the black lights. She needed to do some preliminary research. Endless black light rings flew out from the depths of the sector, rolling and spreading like a black curtain. The giant beetles, which were the size of hills, were the first to fight. As the main battle unit of the Sharp Zerg, their hard cuticle could withstand any bombardment of artillery and laser. Their limbs had sharp saw teeth. They relied on their weight to overwhelm the enemy and then madly cut the enemy's body. This was the simple and fatal attack of this kind of bug. However, they suffered a great loss when they encountered the black light rings today. The giant beetles, which were in the front line, were directly penetrated. The black light rings pierced countless small holes in their tough and thick carapaces, like ultra-long-range sniper bullets. The first few beetles to bear the brunt of the attack were smashed into pieces. This was not the attack method of the rings. They were simply blocked. The hunters on the second line of defense used their own methods. Some of them spat out spider webs, some of them spat out strong acids, and some of them had extremely tough stomachs. They opened their mouths and swallowed countless light rings, preparing to digest these little things with the several layers of stomachs in their bodies. Thea took action at the same time. She grabbed a black light ring with her magic power and studied it carefully. The result was not very good. Even with her strength, she could not destroy the ring by brute force. Although her strength was her shortcoming, not as good as Father Heaven and Uncle Da, she was not weaker than Superman. Unfortunately, no matter how hard she tried, the black light ring was not damaged at all. She used her own emotional power to attack the ring. The black light ring sizzled and emitted white smoke, but it was not damaged. When she mobilized the emotion of fear and attacked with nearly 30% of the energy, the black light ring made a crisp sound and shattered into a pile of powder. It seems that the green light is not necessary. It's just that the single emotion energy must be very high. It's not as convenient as the green light. Thea felt that she had gained something. At least it explained how the female fox could simulate the process of the lanternfish destroying the black light. There was no green light involved in this. Next, she experimented one by one. If anger and fear were to be consumed by 30%, pity and hope would only need to be consumed by 20%. In general, positive emotions had a greater advantage over black lamp. However, it was difficult for ordinary people to control emotional energy freely. Among the 7 Lantern Corps, except for the firstborn, who was a god with a strong will and could control compassion with divine power, the others were nothing if their rings were removed. Thea thought for a moment before putting on her yellow light ring and taking out a green light ring. This was the green version of the light ring that she had made for Alan Scott when she was on Earth. Her spiritual imprint was in the ring, so she could use it with ease. Seeing that the Zerg's first line of defense had completely collapsed, she shot a green light at a black light ring that was slightly closer to her, followed by a yellow light. The ring also sent out a connection-disconnected signal and shattered into powder. Thea was very happy, but looking down at the color of the ring, she was a little depressed. This imitation green light ring was effective, but this place was too far away from the green of all things. Earth was the home of the green of all things, and there were also ordinary planets, but not many. But now they were in space, and the green of all things could not reach here, so the ring ran out of power after a few shots. Let the follow-up troops press on and focus on restraining. Leave the killing to the special bugs. She turned and ordered Kerrigan. Anyway, it was only for one night. In order to deal with the Dark Knight, those bugs only needed to play their role. There was no need to name them. The Zerg Queen began to mobilize the troops in her mind. The giant beetles had suffered heavy losses. The enemy was too small and they were too big. They could not exert much combat power, and were instead riddled with holes. The task of restraining the enemy was handed over to the Zerg called Hunters. Countless giant nets began to cover the void. The Black Light Ring's unstoppable speed was restrained, and as a trump card, using the Rainbow Bandit's angry emotional cells, combined with the genes of the Earth's lanternfish and the sharp Zerg, the frog-like bugs rushed to the black light rings that were caught in the nets. A faint white light shot out from their mouths, and the black light rings disintegrated and turned into dust. Good, very good. Thea was not stingy with her praise. The Zerg Queen was even more motivated now. She used all her commanding abilities to destroy as many rings as possible. Unfortunately, the emotional energy of the bugs was too thin, and the specially tuned genes could not withstand such squandering. At most, she could only spit out 3 times, and a bug would no longer be able to hold on. Kerrigan could not make bricks without straw. No matter how good her commanding was, it was useless. Get out of the way. Block as many as you can. Thea's words made her sigh in relief. It was good news that they did not have to fight to the death. Getting out of the way, the black light rings did not have any consciousness. Like a black flood, they passed through the sharp Zerg's line of defense and rushed out of Sector 666, mechanically according to the set track. They flew to their designated targets according to the settings. The Zerg kept sniping, but unfortunately, it was not very effective. Thea also kept using various methods to knock down the black light rings. Kerrigan only let out a sigh of relief when all the black light rings disappeared. In the past, the Zerg were all in one wave. It was the first time for her to use such meticulous control. The command went into the Zerg's battleship. The Zerg's strong vitality once again opened Thea's eyes. Many of the giant beetles were beaten until they looked like honeycombs. They were thrown into the nutrient solution and rolled twice, and immediately revived with full health. The specially modified bugs also recovered some of their strength after rolling twice. How many targets are there? Can you calculate it? Thea asked Kerrigan. The Zerg Queen activated the biological computer on the mothership and quickly came up with a number. Almost 3. 9 billion black light rings had flown into the universe. The result of their sniping was less than 2 million. Compared to this huge number, it was not even a drop in the ocean. 9 billion. Thea was a little speechless. This was not just 9 billion pigs. It would create 9 billion Black Lantern warriors. Only the most outstanding people in the entire universe would be chosen by the Black Lantern. For example, the sharp bug tribe that had died before, the Black Lantern did not even spare them a glance. In theory, the black light rings could use black to materialize just like the other black light rings. However, because they were all puppets of the Black Death Emperor controlling 9 billion combat units at once was something that even the Black Death Emperor could not do. He could only let the puppets move according to their memories and reduce the amount of control. In other words, those who did not use the black light rings when they were alive would not use them after they died. This was the only good news. Now, what they had to worry about was the main planet of Ura, the graveyard of the Green Lantern Corps' base. Millions of the greatest Green Lanterns were buried there. Once they were turned into black light puppets, even if they could only use half of their strength, it would be enough to make the Guardians suffer. Chapter 8:25. 9 billion Black Lantern warriors. Just think of that scene. It was a universal disaster. Thea ordered the razorback insectoids to wait for orders near Yura's main planet. Scarface had betrayed her and imprisoned her own kind. Thea did not know the actual situation now, but she estimated that the Guardians or the Green Lantern Corps could hold them off for a while. The Lantern Ring was a true warrior with a host. Otherwise, it was just some metal that could fly. Thousands of Green Lantern rings could hold them off for a few hours. The razorback insectoids teleported to Yura. She took off her Soul King costume and changed into another one. She wanted to save Zamalon's Purple Lantern Corps, which was the Bluestone Corps. Considering that there would be many battles to come, she canceled her doppelgangers and went with her original body. Anka's amulet gave her the ability to teleport between life forms. She found the Saint first. Even the Black Lanterns could not get close to Yura's light of hope. The Saint and Qingnu were waiting for her there. Qingnu was a little anxious, while the firstborn held his sword and closed his eyes in deep thought. Darkness is coming. Abinsu's arrangements were not in vain. Let the light of the Green Lanterns shine on the universe. Thea looked at the Green Lanterns who were ready to go and said loudly, "Nu! Nu!" The Green Lanterns made a very unique call. They notified the Green Lanterns in the universe to gather and help teleport the Yellow Lanterns. The Yellow Lanterns dared to fight and kill, the Green Lanterns replenished health, and the Blue Lanterns replenished mana. Under Thea's control, the three lanterns were getting closer and closer to each other. Thea was going to make Yura her base camp. The strong emotions of Hope and Mogo's killing machine made it an impregnable fortress. She would be very busy tonight. Earth and Yura, she had won at least half of the battle if she defended both. "Where are Ganther and Ced?" she asked the Saint. Ganther seems to have seen the Dark Knight. He went back to Yura to warn the Green Lanterns. Ced went to Okero to look for the Orange Lanterns. The Saint was still optimistic. Speaking of the Orange Lantern, Thea thought of Lafleetz. In the original timeline, Lafleetz refused to leave Earth and wrote a long piece of paper, claiming that he wanted to ask Santa Claus for a present. Speaking of this bastard, her head was filled with anger. There was no reason for her to be angry. She took 2 deep breaths before she shifted her attention away. "All right, that's all for now." Interesting. You go ahead and set it up. I'll be right back." Thea then teleported away. Now, the teleportation didn't have any light, so she didn't need to cast any spells. She appeared in an underground building with 2 small boxes behind her and 2 hooded figures standing in front of her. "Did you hide the 2 boxes behind me back then? Old friend, why didn't you come and find me when you returned to the material world? Sinisto, Lisa Draka, it's been a few years. I really miss those days." The tall man took off his hood. It was Sinisto, the first leader of the greatest Green Lantern, the Yellow Lantern. He was still tall and thin, but he looked tired. The short one bowed slightly to her. She was Lisa Draka, who was very sensitive to mysterious auras. "Why aren't you speaking? I remember that we aren't enemies." Sinisto kept his mouth shut. Lisa hurriedly bowed. Lord Sinisto was severely injured in the antimaterial universe. His voice? "Tisk, it's not a big deal." Thea stretched out her finger, and a white light flashed. Sinisto's eyes were a little surprised as he touched his mouth. "All right, I've said it before. We're still friends. Do you want to return to the Yellow Lanterns?" Sinisto glanced at her and said with a hoarse voice, "I won't wag my tail and beg. You can take my voice away." Another stubborn person. Thea was ready to use her ultimate move. She stretched out her hands. Her 10 fingers were as white as jade, like the most precious art in the world. "Look at my fingers. I don't need a ring anymore." Then, a yellow cloud appeared in her palm. "This is the fear that you're most familiar with." Then it changed. "This is the hope of the Blue Lantern. This is the anger of the Red Lantern. This is the pity of the Blue Lantern." Suddenly seeing so many colors, Sinisto was a little dumbfounded. In his impression, the universe only had Green Lanterns and Yellow Lanterns. What was this mess? This world was changing too quickly. "We've pulled apart to the extent of heaven and earth. You're no longer a threat to me, Sinisto. Seeing that we're old friends, I'll give you a piece of advice. The great upheaval of the universe has begun. If you want power, you have to give up something. Sinisto looked at Thea in confusion. You want to recruit me? Fight against the Green Lanterns? Thea was full of charlatan aura. Tonight, don't look at me like that. I'm not a primitive person. Of course, I know about the rotation of the stars. When I said tonight, I meant it literally. The entire universe will be covered by darkness regardless of day or night. Unless you hide in the antimaterial universe, you'll definitely be implicated. After saying that, she received another ultra-long-distance transmission. She turned back to look at Sinisto. You won't be able to deal with tonight's disaster alone. It's not just targeting Adia and Earth. Even your Korriga won't be spared. If you want help, you can come to Odium. The Blue Lanterns, Yellow Lanterns, and Blue Lanterns are all there. After saying that, she left Sinisto to ponder and returned to Odium. Did Planet Zamalon still refuse our help? Sigh, they're so stubborn. Qing Nu gave her a piece of bad news. Queen Zamalon didn't agree to let the 3 lanterns enter her planet. In her opinion, the Purple Lantern Corps could resist any enemy. Love triumphed over everything. Everyone, let's go. The Purple Lanterns are also an important force. Save as many as you can. Thea was helpless. A choice at a critical moment could lead to irreversible consequences. The Black Lantern rings were flying too fast. In the time it took for them to go back and forth, the Purple Lantern's main planet might not be saved. She could only do her best and leave it to fate. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The Blue Lanterns worked together to form a large-scale teleportation array. The 3 lanterns jumped twice and arrived at the periphery of Zamalon. The high-tech planet that was originally covered in love had now become a sea of fire. Hundreds and thousands of Black Lanterns were wreaking havoc nearby. The Purple Lanterns were panicking. They didn't know why their dead sister, the hero, had been resurrected and became their enemy. Are these people worth saving? Sinisto arrived before the main force set off. At this time, he put on his Yellow Lantern ring again and looked down at the chaotic Zamalon people below. His tone was full of disdain. Their total energy source has been destroyed. The Purple Lanterns